Calling the meeting to order. David, do we need a roll call for a quorum, just to make sure we have everybody here?
No.
Just
You have a
verify.
quorum? You
quorum.
verify quorum?
And how many votes, David, do we need for action? Need 10 vote for action.
Perfect. Confirming posting of the agenda.
Needs actually that way.
Any announcement or any changes for the agenda?
Well, the change we're going to make is that we just, the sheriff will have to leave.
That's what it's saying.
So we're going to take public comment after the sheriff. We will do the consent calendar and then the sheriff and then.
Thank you. You're in that order. Okay, we're for the consent calendar. Any corrections based upon the minutes? Anything need to be corrected? I will entertain a motion. It's been properly moved and second. All in favor? Oh, David, you want to do a reverse vote on?
Sure. Any opposition? Any abstention?
Motion passes. Thank you. Now we're going to go and have our presentation. We have the presentation by our newly elected sheriff, Robert Luna, who was elected on 34th as the 34th Los Angeles County Sheriff on November 8th of 2022. Sheriff Luna commanded the largest sheriff department in the United States. Sheriff Luna completed his services at the Long Beach Police, capping a 36-year career at Long Beach Police Department, county's second largest police department. Publicly, I want to say my son graduated as his first class, 462, and good to see him here. And I would like to present to all of you, Sheriff.
Thank you. Very good to see you. Mayor Bucks. Chief to me is always Chief, baby. Chief works. Well, good evening to each and every one of you. It's an absolute honor to be here. Would have been here earlier, but just a little freeway therapy from downtown LA. Justice getting here. Yeah, very, very happy and honored to be here. So I've been in office now for about 4 months, maybe just a little bit over 4 months. And I had never run for office. And many people, not only in this region, but across the country, encouraged me to run for this office. And I say across the country because when I was a police chief in Long Beach, I held a national position on the Major City Chiefs Executive Board. I was a Western Region representative. So through all my contacts across the country, they felt there was a need for a leadership change with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. So you'll know, or you'll see that as I talk about the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, I don't get into talking about my predecessor. I tell when I walked in with my employees, I said, hey, it's about looking forward, not looking in the rearview mirror, because I don't want to expend any energy. And when I say expending energy, I need a lot of energy because there's a lot of work to do. There are absolutely amazing employees with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. The men and women, not only the sworn, but our professional staff do an amazing job every day. But as I was coming in to this organization, facing significant challenges, which there were actually no big surprises for me, meaning that I was looking at a department that was really struggling from a public trust perspective across this county. Issues that have been plaguing it for decades regarding deputy cliques, gangs, and things of that nature that were very prevalent as I was campaigning throughout. And so one of my directives was to eradicate one of these challenges. Accountability, which deals with what I just talked about. There's some challenges there. One of the biggest challenges that this department was facing, I think most of you are familiar with the LA County Sheriff's Department. We have a Civilian Oversight Commission, and the working relationship between the department and the commission did not exist. The relationship between the department and the Inspector General did not exist. So one of my first actions when I stepped into office was to I know this is going to sound strange, but allow the Inspector General back into the building because he was excluded from being allowed into the building. I started to communicate with every single one of our commissioners, really re-engaging and talking about moving forward with one another. Because as I come into the department, I really campaigned on the spirit and the importance of collaboration. And why do I say that? Is because one of my biggest challenges coming in, and there's a list of them, is re-engaging people and repairing a lot of fractured relationships. Fractured relationships that we had with all 5 of our Board of Supervisors, with the county CEO, county council, county HR. I'd spend an hour with you to tell you all the fractured relationships that exist. So one of my priorities has been to go out, develop relationships. For example, I had 3.5 weeks to present the budget for the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And for those of you who are not aware, our budget is $3.8 billion. So I ended up hiring an assistant sheriff who's actually a CFO. She previously worked for the Sheriff's Department many years ago. I ended up bringing her back, and we presented a budget that I think I brought the county CEO to tears, not only because I was bringing back somebody who understands budget, somebody who understands how to plan a budget, but it was a thorough plan that dealt with a multiple year plan and not just coming in and saying, I need $150 million in upgrades, and if you don't give them to me, I'm going to call you names publicly. We didn't want to do anything like that. So looking at our budget, we have some challenges. The Sheriff's Department, we're a little shorthanded, and that is a theme across the country with most police and sheriff's departments. So that's not new for us, but we're going to, instead of complaining about it, we're going to step in and move forward. We are about 950 deputies short handed right now. So one of the things I'll ask all of you, if anybody is interested in a career in law enforcement, of your neighbors, friends, or relatives, we have an amazing department and we're hiring. We also are short about 1,000 professional staff members that do a lot of different jobs across the department. So we're recruiting there as well. I just got the preliminary approval though to hire 8 classes for the Sheriff's Department with the contingency to hire 2 more. And although that is good news for us, we're being very cautious about the way we proceed forward, because we are not about quantity, it's quality. One of my many priorities is to hire good people who will serve our county as sheriff deputies, as professional staff. And they're out there. We just have to try very hard to find them and find people who match the diversity of our very extremely diverse county. Another challenge that we're facing is I'm walking into a department that, from a modernization or perspective, a technology perspective, we are so lagging behind. You hear, as a matter of fact, last week, our department, the county, was in court regarding our custody facilities. And if you pay attention to the news, and I'm sure everybody who's sitting here does, the Sheriff's Department has had a horrible reputation for our custody facilities. And I plan on coming in and changing that. As a matter of fact, I don't know if most of you know this, but currently the Sheriff's Department has 5 consent decrees. We are about to get 2 more. That is not good news. That is something I inherited. But I have made a pledge that I'm going to change the tone and start going to a place where, 1, we're changing our behavior. 2, we're complying with our consent decrees and settlement agreements. And three, ultimately getting out of them because they are costing our taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. I'm happy to report that one of my many meetings I've had this week was with a team of federal monitors from Washington, DC, from federal DOJ. And they just left today. And they left in a very good mood. They left because they said, we've been here for 10 years and the enthusiasm we see in your leadership team is one of really trying to work with us. I just put together the Office of Constitutional Policing. I hired Eileen Decker. I think most of you know her background. If you don't, she's had many positions in this region. One of the most important positions she had is she was in charge of the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and she actually prosecuted Lee Baca and Paul Tanaka, who just got out of prison not too long ago for a lot of their past deeds with the LA County Sheriff's Department. The fact that I had her sitting next to me talking to these attorneys from the U.S. Department of Justice, I think spoke well that, hey, this guy is actually going to take this stuff serious to get out of these consent decrees and further and others. And then I met with attorneys regarding our custody facilities. I talked a little bit about technology. I left it really quick. I know I'm not going to speak to you that long, but we have the largest custody facility in the entire world. Our daily inmate population is 14,000. I don't think anybody's proud of that, but please know that when we go to court and, for example, we're asked to depopulate our facilities, that we take those items very serious because we want to be constitutional in the way we approach our inmates, because when they're in our custody, they are my responsibility. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. I want to make sure that we are serving them and protecting them. But as we look at our jail population, and I'm asked to depopulate it, which means letting out hundreds or maybe thousands of prisoners, I start looking at the list that we have. And I'm looking, for example, at, are there lower level offenders here? And there's not too many of those. A lot of the people who are in there for very serious offenses. And I hate to be reporting to you about this, but 40% of our population is mentally ill. They don't belong in our jail, but we have nowhere else to put them. And when I say we, it's not Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department has nowhere else to put them. We as a community need alternatives. We need better mental health services. We need better addiction services. There's so much that we need. So I'm going to continue to work hard. I'm going to continue to lobby. I was up in Sacramento a couple of weeks ago, talking to a lot of our legislators and talking about some of those needs, because the last thing I want to do is impact all of our communities by letting people out who may hurt somebody or frankly, not last on the streets themselves because they don't have the services that they need to progress forward. So we have a lot of work to do, but I'm just going to end my comments like this, is to tell you that I'm extremely committed. Even though there's a significant amount of challenges that face us, whether they're in our neighborhoods, in our custody facilities, in the 37 courts that we serve, the transportation system that we assist on, that we work on with Mayor Butts. We are committed to reducing crime, improving the quality of life, and making sure that we do it in a constitutional manner. So when you're hearing about the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, they're not negative stories. And I hope all of you have noticed, if you do read, for example, the LA Times, we're not in there every day anymore for drama, negative interactions. We get in there once in a while, but when I was sworn in, I teased Mike Moore from LAPD. I said, hey, my job is to get the 1,000-pound gorilla off my back and put it on yours. And I was kidding when I told him that. Unfortunately,
But it worked.
but I didn't intend to do that, but But you know what? I'm committed to integrity for our men and women, accountability, and then collaborating. And that means with all of you as well. And please look at me and count on me as a partner when things come up, when you need help, whether you contract with us or you have your own police department. I am fully engaged with every police chief in LA County. I consider myself a leader in that group to move us forward, to look at that vision we have of 21st century policing or 21st century sheriff's department. So I don't know if I have time for any questions, sir, but it's up to you.
Well, we have about enough time for maybe one or two questions because we have a very heavy agenda for this evening.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I have a question, I have a statement. I've known the sheriff, it must be around 30 years. He was in Long Beach as I was coming up through Englewood and Santa Monica. And I will tell you that in law enforcement, when you become a chief, we were saying the big boats turn slow. He's got one of the biggest boats there is. And it's not going to change overnight. But I would tell you this, that this is one of the smartest, highest integrity people that I've come across in my 37 years in law enforcement. And it was just such a wonderful thing for LA County for him to be elected. And I don't want to tell you that, you know, I told you as you were running, I support you. I support you now. And the only thing that you didn't do, you didn't tell them that they have to vote unanimously on item 8B2. But other than that, I can say congratulations, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And we look forward to better days ahead.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Cedric, question? Barry?
So I'm going to bug you about the same thing we talked about a couple weeks with contract cities, which, by the way, thank you for meeting with us with contract cities so early in your term, and now for meeting with the COG. You're the police chief for probably most of us here. On the transit side, I mean, this is something that's very important. We have a transit system that people perceive as being unsafe and that is leading to adding to other problems. So where are we going on that? From as far as the things that you can control?
Well, one, I wrote it personally the other day just to engage as many people as I could and listen to the challenges that they have. And there are a lot of people who are writing it who don't feel safe on it and they don't want to bring their families on board. The bottom line is we have a lot of work to do. I think COVID was a challenge to all of us. We are, in my opinion, working better with the Los Angeles Police Department and the Long Beach Police Department than we ever have. Although we were just asked to provide a surge of deputies on the LAPD line to assist them as we move forward. But we want to continue to work with the board as we try to fulfill their vision of looking forward. But we have to talk about staffing and what that looks like. We have to make sure, because we consider them, Metro, a customer, and really listening to them, but engaging the challenges that we face and not only thinking from an enforcement perspective, but for example, with the sheriff's department, we put additional mental evaluation teams on there and host teams on there that deal with homelessness. So when we're dealing with the issues of mental illness and homelessness and addiction, how do we deal with that collectively to better improve that? And then really looking at some of the decisions we've made in the past and then look forward to look at the issues of fare evasion, the code of conduct on the train, which from listening to a lot of our customer base say that's why they don't feel safe. People, for example, sleeping on using up to those are things that we're asking our deputies in our department. I know Mike Moore is in LAPD and Wally Hebish in Long Beach, asking them to make sure that we are paying attention to those. And at the end of the day, our goal is to make it safe. And we need to get there. We absolutely need to get there, not only for everyday riderships, but we have some big events coming to this region that we have to be ready for. and we have to do this together. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff, for that. I want to reserve to invite you to come back. We have a heavy discussion on the agenda, but I would love for you to be able to come back and be in a more intimate setting with all of us from the South Bay COG and just have a good dialogue back and forth.
Love to.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Now we have Michelle Rand from the Relay for Life. This is supposed to be the fun stuff, Michelle?
No, that is a hard act to follow because I'm a professional volunteer. So I'm like, okay, I wanna help him. Okay, so I didn't actually write things down because giving me time to talk, I can talk for a very long time. I need that too. Okay, so for those of you that don't know, my name is Michelle Rand and I'm a volunteer with the Relay for Life, the largest fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. I've been involved with the Relay for 20 years now, after the passing of my mom to cancer. I was looking for healing at that time and I stepped onto the track and I thought I was just gonna do this for me. I was gonna do something to give back. I was gonna do this alone, but what I found when I went out there, there's a whole bunch of people in that community that were fighting together to give back. And I thought, you know what, this is for me. I'm gonna get in and I'm just gonna do what I can, and I've never stopped. Well, in 2021, during the height of COVID, and I don't know if many of you know, but I don't know if anybody here knows Dr. Rand. Well, that's my husband. He's over at Torrance Memorial. Well, he was busy with COVID. I ended up getting cancer, the same cancer that my mom got, that passed away from 20 years before. Well, it made it a little bit more personal. So I decided I'm going to fight even harder for the American Cancer Society. And my passion for the community grew that much stronger. So the Relay for Life of Torrance is what I really want to talk about right now. There's only a few relays left in South Bay. This year, the Relay for Life of Torrance is celebrating its 21st year. And as of today, it has raised over $3.9 million to further the American Cancer Society's vision. And our event is one of the premier events now, and that's taken place in the last 2 years. And that's with back-to-back events in 6 months that we raised, what's a combined total? I don't know, close to $500,000 in 6-month periods, because everybody has been affected by cancer and everybody was willing to give. I'm sorry, I went off my notes here. I gotta get back here because I'll go off in a whole nother different direction. But so our event is in the top 24 nationwide, and that is huge. But again, there's only a few left in the South Bay. I've worn many hats with the relays, and I've participated in a lot of relays. Yours in Carson, because I love the kids. I would go over there and participate. I have been the photography for El Segundo, Beach Cities, Torrance. I've been the event lead for Torrance and team captains for Torrance Memorial and churches and schools. But this year I have a special role. This year I am the survivor lead. So what does that mean? I get to celebrate survivors. Now, I'm going to start to cry. I have the honor of celebrating survivor this year. As survivors, anyone that has heard the words, we've got cancer. So when you talk to people about survivors, they think anybody that's beat it, but it's not. It's that first time you hear those words, you've got cancer. Now, Torrance isn't the only area that has survivors, so it got me thinking one night, because I can never turn my head off. I'm always about community, whether it's the homeless, whether it's in the streets. Well, mine right now is cancer. So I think, what can I do? How can I make a difference? So I got to thinking, how can I connect with more survivors in our sister cities to hear all of you? I wanted to connect with those cities that no longer have relays. And there's so many that have left. So that's why I'm here today. I would like to invite each one of you to our event, Relay for Life of Torrance event, which is only 8 days away. At South High School in Torrance, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on May the 6th. But what I would like is for all of you to give some thought to joining us, the City of Torrance events, on a larger scale. By placing your names behind the American Cancer Society to become one bigger event in the future. Just something to think about, to become a Relay for Life yourself, or something larger, because everybody has been touched by cancer and it's just not Torrance. So I would like to see something like that. So here's my question. Will you join us and others as we further the American Cancer Society's vision to end cancer as we know it for everyone? Put that in your back pocket for later. Now, with that said, keeping with the Kentucky Derby theme this coming weekend, our theme is Derby of Hope. So I made these cute little bags for everyone. I have an entire container. Inside of there are some paydays and grand bars, plus this cute little QR code if you want to join the relay. And how many of you have been to a relay? Luminaria, there you go. Everybody has a bag. And this is for you to honor somebody that has been touched by cancer. Okay, come to our events for a 9 o'clock ceremony. Oh, I'm done.
You're done.
All of Nancy's time. This is Nancy, but I just took her.
Hi, Nancy.
So this is Nancy Gutzmer. She's my sidekick, but she's actually the ACS rep, does everything. All right, all of our information's on the back flyer. Got lots of goodies. Take them. See ya.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now we're at the, on our agenda for comments from the public.
Only on items that.
Items that are not on the agenda. Anyone for comments on not on the agenda? It's not on the agenda. Not on the. It's a mark over in the corner, just on that mark.
But he was here too, and I don't know why he's gonna say. The sheriff was here, so he was.
Hi there. I had some comments about the ITC project. I believe it's on the agenda tonight.
It's on the agenda. That'll be later.
Excellent. Thank you.
And everyone, good evening. It's Eric Rodriguez with the Southern California Association of Governments. I just have two quick announcements I'd like to make. Every 4 years, the SCAG region, which is here LA County, Imperial Riverside, we do our Connect SoCal. So right now we're having workshops and pop-up events throughout the region. We're having one in on Wilshire Boulevard in downtown on May 25th, but I know that's pretty far. So what we've done is have two virtual workshops. The first one, May 10th, is next Tuesday, and actually 2 weeks from now, and another one, May 10th. I have some flyers there. We'd love for you to participate. This is all about clean air. What would you like to see in the future? Better jobs, closer jobs to you, better homes. So if you'd like to participate that, we'd love to hear from you on the South Bay. The last one is SCAG REAP 2.0 has released, and we've actually provided funds for each of the COGs, and the COG South Bay has up to $585,000 that you can apply for. So that application is due May 30th. This is part of the $23 million that we set aside for our member cities to help reduce greenhouse gases and infill housing. So if you want any more information, I'll be here until the end of the day. I'll pass my business card. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to help.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments for non-agendized items? Is Lindsay Lassiter here?
He's up there.
Lindsay,
Hi, good evening.
how are you?
I'm sorry. Good. I'm sorry. My camera was covered. I'm actually going to be hunting this over to my colleague Audra Jones, and she's right there in the room with you all. I want to introduce her. I'm not sure if Dr. Franklin is in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from the Department of Public Health. I'm the Senior Public Health Analyst in SPA 7 and 8, and actually will be moving on to a different unit. And Dr. Chang will continue to be here and for our SPA 8 presentations. But Audra Jones comes from our African-American Maternal Infant Mortality Initiative, and she's going to talk more about and present herself. So she will share some slides, I believe, as she's getting ready. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Like Lindsay said, my name is Audra Jones. I am with the Department of Public Health. I am the Director of Outreach and Engagement for our LA County AIM Prevention Initiative. So our goal is to reduce the incidence of death and morbidity for Black women and their infants. I have been doing this work since the early 90s, when we had the first Black infant health program in the city of Inglewood, which was Great Beginnings for Black Babies, and Inglewood Healthy Mamas and Babies. And so I've been also serving LA County in this work, in and around similar work for the past 20 years. I'm very familiar with health initiatives, promotion, engagement, and what we need to do to save lives and ensure that we don't have similar happenings like what we had in the city of Inglewood on January 10th, when we lost April Valentine, and in the city of LA on March 2nd, when we lost Bridget Cromer. Both of these young ladies were 31 and 32 and have left behind children that never got to even hold them in their arms. And so these are the things that we want to prevent. Next slide. So who we are, we're a coalition made up of the LA County Department of Public Health, Mental Health, First 5 LA, as well as community organizations and clinicians and community members. And so our main goal is to eliminate inequality in birth outcomes for LA County. In 2018, really 2017, I was working for whole person care, and I saw the need for us to reduce our incidence of Black birth deaths for infants. And I saw that we had not done that in the past 30 years to at least a halfway point. So there was a purpose to create a collaborative of bringing community and government together in an effort to do that. For us who are most experiencing the issue, to elevate our concerns as well as lead out and have public health join in with other departments to support the necessary needs, because so long Black women and other women as well, we'll talk about a little bit about maternal mortality and morbidity as it is in our nation. And some of you may have seen, if you haven't, I encourage you to look at what CDC just put out a few weeks ago, that we have the highest maternal mortality rate, and we are worse than many underdeveloped countries. Our rates go back to what is been seen as what has happened in the 1960s. Next slide. So what are our values for AIM? Racism as the root cause. I can thank Dr. Ferrer as being one of the first public health leaders to come to LA County and really elevate that and say that racism was one of the leading causes for Black infant and maternal deaths. Also, Black women up front and leading. So as Black people as well, talk a little bit about our fatherhood program. We're fostering equity while fighting inequality, and everyone has a role. So everyone has a piece to play, and there's no blame game. So in times past, when I was doing this work, there was a lot of victim blaming and shaming and blaming women for their issues, and not really looking at what are some of the issues that could be prevented, the education that could be provided, as well as support needed. Next slide. So I really cut, now this is about an hour-long presentation. I cut it down to do 10 minutes to tell you how to save babies and mamas from dying, but I do today.
Okay.
To see this data here, and if you look at it, this orange line is the Black infant mortality rate. The blue line is white. And so I'm going to take you over here to spot 8 and look at where we are, 8.3 per 1,000 live births. Okay, right now the highest is East spot 7, and that changed. So this changed between the 2018 and 2020. Used to be spots 1, 6, and 8. Next slide. So this is our maternal mortality rate. And if you look at it, you see here white, Hispanic, Asian, and Black mothers are at the highest between this period of 2008, 2019. So we're losing Black moms at 4 to 6 times the rate of white moms in California. Other states are even higher than that. Next slide. This is Biden. For our maternal mortality rate. This is spot 6, spot 1. So you can see where we are, where spot 8 is like. Next slide. So this right here is what I've been sharing from Moms Rising since about 2018, when I first started talking back about this conversation, we talked about folks like Dr. Shalon Irvin, who had several degrees. She worked for CDC, and she died within weeks of giving birth to her child because of misdiagnosis. She was doing work like social determinants of health and should not have been dead at this point. She should have been really heard when she was going to the doctor daily about her preeclampsia and hypertension. The last reading before she died, the person who was reading it misread her high blood pressure, and she died. So Black women are 243% more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes than white women. And on an average, Black women with higher income and college educated are faring worse than white women who have not completed high school. These are the facts. Next slide. So in our AIM infrastructure, we actually have pulled together the steering committee, which is kind of like our C-suite folks, nonprofit organizations like Black Women for Wellness, California Black Women's Health Project, I Dream for Racial Health Equity, and many who have come together. We pulled them together thanks to Dr. Franklin over there, who runs our MCAH programs. I pulled them together and helped initiate. She also helped initiate this entire AIM prevention initiative. And so in our steering committee, these are folks that are looking at how to guide the county-wide efforts around reducing infant mortality and morbidity, as well as maternal mortality and morbidity. We also have 4 community action teams. The first one started in October 2018 and officially launched in January 2019 in South Los Angeles, South Bay. We meet bi-monthly. I'll tell you a little more about that. But as a result of that community action team, we have now had 3 others that we've expanded around the county, the San Gabriel Valley, Antelope Valley, as well as Santa Clarita and San Fernando. We have the Cherish Futures Collaborative. Cherish Futures is a Cherish Futures for Black Babies, where we're working with hospitals and having community advisors who have lived experience as well as professional experience to work with hospitals to navigate improving their services and outcomes. And so White Memorial is one of them, as well as the other doctor. Torrance, yes. And we used to have, there's one more here.
Little company.
Little Company of Mary. Thank you. Who said that? Okay. And so then we also have, and we've had since 2019, a AIM community doula program where we offer free doula services for African-American women. And if any of you do not know, as a result of January of this year, last year, our governor passed SB65, which is the omnibus. So now all women who have Medi-Cal can receive doula services. On top of that, since we've been doing this work, we've been working with the health plan so they can also offer that. So this is for you. If you have children, nieces, any women in your life, any sons who plan to have children, you should be asking your health plans, are they going to provide doula service? Next slide. And all of this we do is a shared decision-making process. Okay, all right. Now, time to I love it. Reducing stress is caused by racism and discrimination. And don't have the time to talk about it now, but this racism and its impact on Black bodies has gone back to in the womb for us. And it carries on through the rest of our lives. And so we also have the AIM Village Fund, where we're providing funds to smaller organizations as well as individuals to provide services in our community. Then we also have a public awareness campaign. Some of you may have seen, we have Black Maternal Health Week. We've been doing it for 6 years here in the county, thanks to our Board of Supervisors who approved it. And it happens here annually, as well as on April 17th, 16th, considered the Day of the Black Infant. We also have Charles Drew University. They have a Black Maternal Health Center of Excellence, and we've opened the first home in South LA and plan to open another in Antelope Valley. Keep going. All right, go on. So basically, this is some of what we do with our community action team. We have done Black Breastfeeding Week annually. We'll have a Father's Day celebration coming up. So the last Black Maternal Health Week was held in the city of Inglewood, and we also did a justice walk for April Valentine. Ended it with a community resource fair and baby shower. where we served over 120 families. And so we were very excited about that. We'll have a Father's Day, Juneteenth celebration and baby shower for the men because we do have fatherhood engagement. You can go to the next slide. Go again.
Oh.
And now in here with our Expecting Fathers group, where we have a 5-weekly session offered by Davion, our fatherhood engagement coordinator, working with new fathers to take them through the series, as well as we have Black Daddy Dialogue that meets once a month on Wednesdays for men to have conversation and help them get involved in these efforts. So we don't have gentlemen like Nigel Robertson and Freddie Cromer, who now has 5 children he has to raise on his own, dealing with this issue, but for them to be better prepared to be advocates. So I thank you. Follow us on blackinfantsandfamilies.org. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Did you bring any literature with?
I did.
Pass it out so we can make sure everybody at least get that information.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Brandy Venezuela, Area G.
Brandy's up here too.
Brandy's up front. Oh,
There she is.
there she goes.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
You're on.
Thank you.
You're on.
Perfect. Thank you for having me this evening. My name's Brandy Villanueva. I'm the Area G Disaster Management Coordinator. Thank you for having me. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of some of the activities that we have done in Area G. So Area G is composed of 14 of our South Bay cities. So all of our hill cities, the beach cities through Inglewood are all serviced by Area G. We work really closely with the emergency managers to improve the preparedness, response, and recovery efforts in each of our communities. And over the past 3 months, we have had quite a lot of work in front of us with our 2 presidential winter storm responses that a lot of our communities were impacted with. So we were doing a lot of response to the rainstorms, working closely with the county to get our request for recovery dollars. And now we are starting the process of the FEMA public assistance for those presidential declarations. In addition to our winter storm responses, our communities have been working closely with our Cal OES partners, as well as our operational area partners at Office of Emergency Management through the county to do some advanced planning. So in this past quarter, we did tsunami planning for our communities in Area G that do have tsunami impacts. We're very fortunate here in Area G where we have quite a few potential impacts from tsunamis to refinery releases, earthquakes, and wildfires. So we get a wide variety of preparedness opportunities ahead of us. In addition to our tsunami preparedness planning with the state, we also did a communication drill statewide to ensure that our communities that are impacted by tsunami will be communicated with quickly and efficiently to start those evacuation needs if possible. As an operational area, we worked with LA County Office of Emergency Management over the past 3 months and did cybersecurity planning. And I've also done a tabletop exercise as well as a functional exercise with some of our communities to see how we would actually respond to a cyber attack at a local jurisdiction and how that would actually impact our ability to function. We are so reliant on technology that we have to remember that we may have to work without technology at some point in time. And most of the time when we have disasters, that's when our technology seems to like to present some challenges to us. So it gave us an opportunity to do some advanced planning. We are also working closely with our local partners and the local cities, and they're updating their local hazard mitigation plans and emergency operation plans. And in the next quarter, we'll be starting to work as a region, all 14 cities, on our shelter operations and what the MOUs with the Red Cross will look like. We are also working with the county for extreme heat planning. I know it sounds very crazy that we're working on extreme heat when we're just getting over our winter storms, but it is something that we have to be aware of and prepared for because June and July are coming quite quickly. So we're working through identifying cooling centers and cooling spots in our local jurisdictions that we can do advanced marketing and preparedness for, so that in the event we need to activate them, we can move very quickly in activating. One of the other items that we've been working on in Area G is the implementation of D-Land in some of our communities, which is an EOC software system that allows our EOC responders to work more efficiently and quickly in an EOC response. So some of our communities are working through implementing that in their EOC. Our biggest accomplishment in this first quarter of 2023 is the completion of our regional Alert South Bay contracts. So all 14 of our Area G communities are on a single alert and warning platform. So we were able to complete our contract and start services for all 14 communities. And we will start working through our training to ensure all of our communities are ready to do alert and warning as necessary moving forward in a disaster. The other thing that we're working on in this next quarter is bringing additional training to our local communities. So I will be teaching in partnership with one of our other areas some EOC training in the next couple of weeks out in their jurisdiction. And then in June, we will be hosting it here in Torrance as well. So we have a lot of moving components going on. And this is in addition to all the various events that are happening in each of our communities that are, we have Armed Forces Parade in Torrance coming up. Inglewood is always having an event of some sort that their staff is working through. So we're working with all of our cities to make sure they're prepared. I know I spilled a lot of information. I know you're on a quick timeline. Are there any questions for me?
No questions.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Next up, one of our own is leaving, being an elected official, and is also trying to retire, but I think it's a little bit too soon. But Christian Horvath, I want you to come over to the back where we have the X.
X on the-
X marks the spot. Should have been a member of the COG from 2015 to 2023. Long time. Don't.
I'm saying you've aged as much as.
Yes, and that he was a chair from 2019 to 2020. And on behalf of the South Bay City's Council of Government, we want to send this little thank you. It's an ink pen. So I don't know how much more writing you're gonna be doing. A lot, okay. And then we also, out of the members that are here who gave a little bit of money, from cash, that you have a gift card to go and do some shopping. And from your family, they brought you some cupcakes. Life is sweeter when you're retired.
Oh.
Let me just say, I know you're gonna be a great chair because you are moving this meeting at a clip and that is very important talent to have in this body. But I just want to say, first of all, the COG is like a big extended family to me. And I am so grateful to have met Jackie and to have actually been a part of this organization and met all of you. You know, Redondo is an dramatic place and you welcomed me here as an equal. And I've always said the first person I sat next to at my first meeting was Mayor Butts. And treated me as if I'd been there for 5 years, you know, and I appreciate that. And I just feel like we get so much work done in this organization. It is highly beneficial for our sub-region. And I hope everybody really understands that this is an innovative, wonderful place to do more for your own communities. And so I will stay tangentially involved, but I thank you for being a friend and for all of this. And hopefully I'll see you around in my new capacity as a staff member because I just love what we do so much. So, thank you. Thank you. Christian.
next one is and she's also on the screen.
Update on city recreation from Sean. No, recognition, city recognition, I'm sorry. From Sean, where's Sean at?
Hi, I'm right here.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, let me just get my screen shared really quick. All right, can everybody see this? Sorry, I don't know if I got confirmation.
Yes.
Yes, awesome. Okay, thank you so much. I mean, first, congratulations to Christian Horvath. Thank you so much. I don't know if he's still in the room, but yeah, thank you so much for everything you've done for the COG over the years. Yeah, thank you so much for having me and squeezing me in tonight. My name's Sean Fujioka. I'm one of the staff with the COG. I'm a project coordinator with the energy efficiency side of things in GIS. So I'll be presenting to you all on the Q1 report for the South Bay Public Agency Energy and Climate Recognition Program. So brief overview for anybody who may not be aware, this program started this year in 2023 and recognizes cities in the South Bay for pursuing energy efficiency initiatives and completing other climate and sustainability related tasks. In the future, we plan to expand this to other public agencies as well, such as school districts and water districts. And then another part of this program is that it's a collaboration with the Southern California Regional Energy Network, or the SoCal REN. So cities must be enrolled in the SoCal REN in order to be eligible to participate and be recognized in this program. And then finally, the COG will provide quarterly progress reports and recommendations to our cities. We just recently did this in April with the Q1 progress report and recommendations, and then we will be doing this at the end of each quarter following as well. So recognition levels for this program, we have bronze, silver, and gold. And then for each category for bronze, the activities need to be completed range from 3 to 7 or 3 to 7 points. And then for silver, it's 8 to 11 activities completed, and gold is 12 to 15, with 15 being the maximum possible. And then what are the benefits of being in this program? We will recognize cities that hit at least the minimum of bronze. In December, the COG and the SoCal REN will host a ceremony at the end of each year in December. And then additional recognition may take place at energy manager working group meetings, city council, and COG board of directors meetings, such as this one. And at a minimum, cities will be presented with a certificate and acknowledgement on the COG website and social media. But as cities move higher up in the recognition levels, they will receive increasing recognition. Okay, now this next slide may not be too visible in the boardroom, but it's okay. My next slide will be more legible for you all, so they're sitting right there. But this is just like a screenshot of the tracker that we use and send to our city staff at the end of each quarter. So this like includes like each city and these like columns here on the right. And then as they complete an activity, which is listed on the left, they get like a cute little gold star. And this kind of just shows how they stack up against other cities in their progress to be recognized in this program. And then at the bottom, we include like their point total, as well as the tier or the stat level that it's associated with. Now, here's the actual legible part that you can all read. So between January and March of 2023, we have 2 cities that have hit the silver status so far for 2023, which is Hawthorne and Rolling Hills Estates. They're doing awesome. And then for bronze, we have 4 cities, which is El Segundo, Hermosa Beach, Rancho Palos Verdes, and Torrance. And then we have several cities that are in progress and have not yet hit a tier. This could either be because they have not yet hit the minimum 3 points that is the bronze level, and or they haven't yet completed 1 activity per category, which I'll get into on the next slide. So yeah, these cities still have the ability to hit these statuses, but they have not yet hit it as of Q1. And then at the bottom here, I have listed, we have 2 of our cities are not yet enrolled in the SoCal REN. So they unfortunately cannot yet be recognized, but if they are interested in being enrolled in the SoCal Run and participating in this program, we are more than happy to work with them and get them enrolled as soon as possible. So how to increase points from this previous slide. These are the categories that I was talking about. We have 3 different categories that cities can complete activities, which is climate action, adaptation, sustainability, education, networking and engagement, and technical assistance. Now, cities must provide documentation of completing their activities in order to receive credit. And then another thing too that I haven't listed is that cities can earn bonus points for energy savings associated with energy efficiency projects that they complete in this program. Now, some example activities, getting more specific from the categories that I listed. In the climate action adaptation category, cities can update their greenhouse gas emissions inventory to earn a point. Our Civic Spark Fellow that's working on climate action related matters, she is currently working on this for our cities. So if your city is working with her and submits the necessary data to update this inventory, then they can earn a point in the program. We already have a few of our cities that have done this. And then another thing in that category is participating in a South Bay Cities COG sustainability initiatives, such as the local travel network or the green business program. We have 3 cities that are doing that. Another city, I believe it was Rolling Hills Estates, also earned a point for doing an organic waste program. And then in the education engagement category, we have promoting sustainability actions through city newsletters, social media. This is definitely an easier one to complete, but if your city doesn't have any content in order to make posts or include in their newsletter about, you can definitely reach out to us and we can provide the content that your city might need in order to complete this task. And then in the technical assistance category, some activities would be completing an energy efficiency project. As long as the project is completed in 2023, we can award you a point. The city of Hawthorne just earned a point for an LED lighting project. And then finally, participating in a SoCal Run energy program, a facility audit. We're currently doing a facility equipment inventory, and ideally would like to get all city halls done by summer of 2023. So if your city does that with us, then they will earn a point. Several of the cities have earned a point from this so far. And also benchmarking. We are currently completing reports for the AB 802 California benchmarking program. So if your city works with us to become in compliance with that, then that's another way to earn a point. So next steps, cities continue completing activities and providing us documentation so we can award them points in the program. And then as needed, the COG and the SoCal Run will assist cities in completing projects and activities. And then in July, the COG will send the Q2 report and recommendations to city staff. Okay, keeping this very brief. So if you have any questions or corrections or updates regarding cities' activities that are completed, I can direct all of that to me. My email is listed right there. And yeah, if you have any questions right now, feel free to ask.
Any questions? Do you?
Dude, but I'll take your email address down.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay, am I good to stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
These reports will be coming quarterly.
Okay. Now we have our action items, reports and updates. Dues increase. Becky?
Yeah, this is the recommendation from the Finance Steering Committee. Finance Committee met and looked at several different due scenarios. And the due scenario is on page 98. Option 3 was the recommendation coming out of the Steering Committee. And we can answer any questions.
I have no questions, just a comment. So I know this discussion's been going on for a few meetings, and our city council wanted to actually agendize it, talk about it. There was some concern that our city they chose not to, but that we didn't opt into using the planner for the first couple years. And so our request or the majority request was if the COG would be okay keeping it as an assessment
just so that we can, take advantage. I encourage them, please try and use it. Might be a good way to offset, staff costs and whatnot. So, and there was just some concerns they hadn't, I guess, wanted to take advantage or use they were willing to try it out for a year and see, just so that they could see how it works with our city. There's always budget concerns and whatnot. And I know, it's kind of throwing a Hail Mary out there. I know we've already kind of gotten through a number of votes on this, but I did want to bring that forward. And so our city was just requesting, if it's possible to hold it off for a year and keep it the way it is, we'd really appreciate it, just so we can come back and kind of see, how it works with our city. I have no concerns that, they'll want to continue with it, but, they did ask for that request. We took a formal vote on that.
Hi, so I just wanted to make a proposal, and I do apologize that from my city or city Rolling Hills. For quite a few times, I've been talking about how the disparate cost for our city. So I just we did have a meeting about it, and some of our council members were very alarmed about the difference in the cost per resident to us, because we being the smallest city in the South Bay. And at this point in time, I have the statistics from the Department of Finance, which takes the 2020 census data. They also incorporate changes from the census and from other sources to come up with an accurate population estimate. So our population is actually 1,684 people. It's a very small city. There's no commercial. So our sources of revenue are solely from property taxes and fees for services primarily. So we're going through a deficit. So that was part of the reason. I think there's been some concerns about the cost of our dues vis-a-vis other cities for a while. But with the deficit, it became a hardship. And for some of the city council members, where they're looking to cut things. I personally, and I know that Pat Wilson as well, would like to stay with the COG. I find it to be valuable, and I think it's valuable for our staff to be able to attend meetings and so forth and interact with other planning directors and with city managers. But what I'm doing in a form of a Hail Mary as well to all of you. Unfortunately, I could not make it at the steering committee. I had been doing a project that was due the very same day of the steering committee, and I had not slept for 26 hours, and I was working on finish. It did not get submitted until 4:30 p.m. that day. Otherwise, I would have been there. But I simply want to point out, and the statistics from Department of Finance from the most recent one is January 1st, 2022. That's this chart. Here's and I've highlighted each of your cities. I don't have LA County and LA City because I don't know what the segment of population is. But I have drawn up a list, and I apologize for my handwriting. I did it real quickly. But the point is that at the lowest is 0.36 cents per resident. That would be for Carson. And then the highest is Rolling Hills, which is $4.58 per resident, based on the due structure that was recommended under scenario 3. The next lowest for us is Rolling Hills Estates, which is basically $1.35. So what I am proposing, we still have to talk to our council about it, but I want to put forth that if we were to pay the same rate as Rolling Hills Estates, they obviously have commercial and so forth, that would cause us to pay $2,273.40. So basically $2,275. So again, this is a budget estimate for what the COG deems that they would need from dues. And so that would be a diminution of the $7,726 that they're seeking. But I'm asking this body to consider, out of fairness and equity, to try to put it in a range where, even though it is still higher than it should be for our population and for our sources of income, and the fact that we have no roads, we can't use any of the transportation monies that the COG does because all of our roads are private. And so we have to give away the funds for that. And so we don't have that benefit. And so we have to hire out because we're so unique consultants, so we're not even using the housing person because we have to hire our own consultants because we're such a niche community. So that's where I'm standing to point of basically asking for you to respectfully consider the needs of Rolling Hills so that we can stay with the COG. I would like for us to stay, and I would be able to go with my council and say, look, they really considered our needs and they're making some concessions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
does that require a motion?
Can I just please discuss what happened at the steering committee? At the steering committee, we discussed this issue. And what happened at the steering committee was the city of Rolling Hills had sent us a motion. And I don't know if you're here on your own behalf or on the behalf of the city, but the motion that the city sent us was passed by their council. And it said, and I should say that we gave every city the chance to come in by March 20th with their own formula. And we did not get that from Rolling Hills. What we got was a motion from the council that was passed that said that they would stay in the COG if their dues were $1,000 or less. And if not, they were directing their staff to have a formal motion to leave the COG. The steering committee took the action that said, we would like them to stay in the COG, but the dues are as we had planned them, which is the same formula that every member has. And population is one part of our dues, but we also take into account city's general fund. So that's why the dues is a little more complicated. But the motion from the Rolling Hills City Council was $1,000 or they're dropping out. So that was what the steering committee responded to. And that's why we didn't change the due structure.
And to put it, I don't know where the information came from, but basically there were a couple members that were saying that, but we ended up having a methodology that was based on population. That's what we proposed. And based on our understanding from the previous meeting before the General Assembly, that if any city made a proposition for a proposal for a new dues structure, that there would be a convened finance committee meeting to discuss that so that all the cities could consider it. That particular finance committee meeting did not take place. It was brought up at the steering committee, which I unfortunately could not attend, neither could Pat Wilson from our city. So that's why I'm coming back, because I do think we could be successful by talking about staff needs to be able to have our city council look at it and with a respect to doing it like a $2,275 to stay in the COG, which would be $1,750 more than what they wanted to spend. But I think it would be a reasonable accommodation.
But the motion on the floor was, I mean, you were the only dissenting vote. The others all voted for the $1,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, you asking a question about a motion to be on the floor.
is her proposition eligible from a motion to amend?
It could be. I think it has to go back to the finance committee, doesn't it?
Well, it could go back. I mean,
Or you,
it doesn't have to go back to anybody, but it doesn't match anything. It's just coming out of the blue.
well,
Yes,
I'm,
it can be done that way.
it can be done. I move to support her proposition.
Thank you.
So I'm not even sure $1,000 covers the administrative costs of membership. So, but the idea that we would base it only on population, you know, our cities are quite varied. Suppose we said, well, let's just base it on, so for Lomita, let's just base it on area. Well, then ours would be lower. Or, you know, for another city, it may say, well, let's base it on our mileage of public roads or highways. You know, anytime we try to use just one piece, I don't think it works. And like, if you're saying that you don't get any advantage of the transportation funds, well, your residents certainly drive on streets outside of the city, and particularly amongst the major thoroughfares that are impacted. Homelessness is not an issue that's particularly impacting Lomita, but certainly it's impacting Los Angeles and Torrance next to us, and we want to support that. So I think the idea that you're not getting your money's worth out of it, I would have to push back on that. But I think even at $2,000, and I appreciate your coming with this, B. So, and you know, I appreciate you very much. and your city. But to say that we could, that we could do anything for $2,000, I think that's very unfair to everyone else. But I do appreciate your at least making the effort and pushing your colleagues on it.
Sure. I have a question. I'm Victoria Losey, Palos Verdes Estates. Fairly new to the group. So the assessment for the planner, was that based on population? Wasn't it kind of a tiered?
It was tiered, yeah.
And we're, sorry, in a nutshell, remind me what the tiers were.
I can tell you.
I like what the factors.
Got it
were,
right
the
here?
tiers.
Yeah, it
So
was
wasn't
Up
just
to
population.
30,000.
it was under 30,000 and then it was 30 to 75,000
And then over 70.
and then over 70.
And that's what we had done one other time when we did climate action planning. We had an assessment for that. And so we felt it was really important, since that was sort of arbitrary, to add the assessment into the dues and make the formula the same so that it would be more equal.
So is there a reason why you couldn't have the same tiered structure for the normal dues? So that kind of goes back to being, you kind of have bands of city size. I understand it doesn't.
I don't think we.
Geography.
We would have to,
area, but
I think we would have to do a whole analysis, because the larger cities would end up paying even more disproportionately larger. I mean, I can't answer that. I'd have to go back.
I guess I think that would be worth seeing. I think that analysis is worth, but I do, because I think that he brings up a good point. I don't necessarily love like, okay, we're gonna carve out one fee structure for Rolling Hills. That doesn't feel super fair. So I would like to see that. And I'm so sorry, I don't know your name.
Bernadette.
But I said at the last meeting, and I will say again, that I do think that the assessment for the planner needs to remain separate for now, because when I wasn't here then, but when we implemented the planner a year ago, it was a 3-year pilot, and to suck it into the general dues, I think you lose its visibility. And I think it has to stay separate for that initial time frame, so you can really assess, was that a good program? Was it not a good program? Okay, yep, it's great for the long haul, roll it in. I mean, I said it at the last meeting, I feel like there's a little more work to be done here. And I appreciate everybody's work for sure, but I think there's a little more work to be done here, and I can see that you don't agree. But that's for us to discuss.
No, I mean, the reason I don't agree is that the planner has been proving his weight in gold, and the cities that have used him have really valued it. And so the question is, do you keep putting an assessment on it? And it turns out we probably would have to even raise the assessment, because we're getting less money to fund the planner from the outside sources.
The more
Yeah.
important that separate and
But
visible.
except that what we're trying to say is it's really a function of the COG. And so shouldn't we make the structure more equal and more fair, and instead of these 3 arbitrary categories? The other thing that is constantly on my mind, and I know it's hard for some of you to imagine, but the smaller cities probably get more services from us than the bigger cities do. And the bigger cities do pay more.
That would not be true in the case of my small city, and so that's why.
I'm talking about your staff members that come to, you don't, I mean, a lot of you don't know all of the people. No.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, is there's an awful lot of consideration. We cannot do this tonight. If you want to change the entire way we do dues, we're going to have a whole new committee. The problem is we're doing budget right now. And so we need a number to plug in that budget. And that's the reason why we bring it to this meeting.
Jackie, before Butts make a statement, what is the drop dead date that we have to have this approved?
June 3rd, by the June meeting.
Okay, I like the idea that we.
No. The budget has to be approved before the.
Oh, yeah.
We're building the budget right now. The draft is
Yeah.
coming to you in
May.
April, or excuse me.
May next month.
Yeah, so we have to do all those calculations.
Based upon the discussion from this evening and based upon carving out, if you took out the special assessment, I mean, there's some things that have been brought to this body that needs to be addressed, and probably go back to our finance to separate them out so that it's clearly delineated, that you know what you're paying for as far as this is a special assessment versus what you're paying for your dues, just because that's something new. Then on top of that, B's brought up the other issue, and I think that at some point we need to probably, all of that needs to be rolled in together, because even though you weren't able to make it there, that shouldn't be a penalty for your city. And that I think at this point in time, we do have a motion on the floor for lack of a
And
second.
I would second it.
You seconded?
Yes.
Okay, but I don't think that we should move, well, we go with a vote on it because you can't change that process on the floor. But my plea to this body is that we take this information, take it back to our finance committee to map out all the issues and bring it back for the meeting in May. Because it has to be done at that time. And then we can at least clear out what's happening with Lawndale, what's happening with B. It's an issue that needs to be addressed now as opposed to later. Go ahead.
I think there are times when common sense has to take precedent over procedure and policy. They have 1,684 residents, is that right? Okay, think about it. They do not benefit very greatly from the transportation grants, even though they drive outside their city, talking about their city. And so I fail to see how carving out an exemption for a city with less than 2,000 people. We have 1,150 employees in. They've got 1,684 residents. And so we can go back to a committee and we can beat it up and beat it around, but you're not going to change the fact that they're an extraordinarily tiny community. And so what she's offering to pay versus what they're being charged per resident is fair. And so I would urge the board to vote now on something that's just a common sense issue. They're a very tiny community. And why should she go home and have to stress over this? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You want to say something, Zach?
Sure, I agree with Mayor Butson that we should not spend hours debating this on and on, because that's $5,000, right? I mean, let's go. And, you know, it's rich to hear Rolling Hills, the state calling for equity, but it is correct that they are paying $4.58 per head, and that is a little disproportionate to what we're all paying. So let's get it going. I call for a vote on motion.
Well, can I get a clarity on the motion? Was the motion for the dues, all the dues, but with
No.
Rolling Hills? Just Rolling.
Just Rolling Hills, just Rolling Hills.
Rolling Hills.
Yes.
And I think part of the issue also is, you know, we've all encountered situations where our councils don't get along necessarily or agree or in the same.
Really?
I've never seen that.
And so I think in the case of Bernadette and Dee, they can be valuable members of our council.
Yes.
And, for years. And I think the neighborly thing to do would be to cut them a break and to show them that we would like to have them. And if they pay a little
So
less.
is that your friendly amendment to his motion? No, that wasn't part of the original motion, that's all.
Well, I'm just agreeing with his emotion.
Agreeing with my.
No, but you said specifically the bees, but we didn't say anything about Bernadette. I want to make sure for the record.
And just to add on, you know, it's similar to what you had said. There was a large discussion. I did push for, you know, what we had all talked about, but you know, there was some discussion. Well, what's our value in that? And so I think for me, I said, okay, I'll get the council to agree to do the special assessment. But in return, you know, I'll try and get the COG to agree to keep it for at least another year so that we can feel comfortable, you know, with the services. And so that's what I'm asking is, you know, just an extension for one more year. You know, if it was 3 years, that's what I'm asking. You know, it was a compromise, you know, I did try to argue. So, you know, if you will, I would greatly appreciate it. So we're comfortable with that.
So maybe that would be an amendment to include the.
Well, I'd vote for that. I won't vote for that.
Well,
Wait, when you get a chance to do that when he calls for the vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't get to poison everybody and say, you're not gonna. vote for it."
Yes, I can say exactly what I'm gonna do. Yeah.
I think he's just saying
I know.
he doesn't want that.
I just want to get it clarified based upon the motion on the floor that there's two different issues that's being discussed.
Correct.
So I'm hearing that the first motion deals with Rolling Hills,
It's a carve out for Rolling Hill.
and now you saying that you're now doing a different motion?
Well, I was gonna see if we could just amend it to add and put them one into one motion, if that's.
But is the maker of the motion willing to accept that?
Okay, so tell me exactly what you're friendly amendment is.
My friendly amendment is to endorse Bernadette's request that they are given an extension.
So the way it's set up is there's the regular membership dues.
Yeah.
And then the special assessment is paid separately. The decision previously was let's just lump them all together. We're just asking, we'll still pay both, but keep them still separate.
I want to know how,
Oh, but that should be for everyone.
yeah, I was gonna say, I want to know how she feels.
But B's saying she's only gonna pay that. She's not paying any assessment.
No assessment is being out of,
Yeah, would you pay the special assessment over and above that if the dues is the 2,000?
No, I think it's gonna be just for the dues.
Oh, so you would pay the special assessment?
I don't know if they will.
Because you are getting work from the regional planner, or they are working on your
I
project.
think this particular proposal was based on the lumped in version, where both items were dues and in based on the current formula.
So let me be clear though. You're saying the special assessment would be billed at this $4.59 a resident, no?
The special assessment would be part of the dues. It turns out, okay, if we go to the staff report, I don't think we have it here.
Yes.
well, I think based upon clarification and what I've heard, that what you have before you in your dues, the special is already included in that the dues, basically.
When we.
And that it wasn't carved out separately. That was a different discussion about having it carved out. But currently what you have on the table that is already included in your actual dues, and then Rolling Hills is only going to pay the 2,700 that they have put on the table. So that's what it is.
And that's
for both. That's everything.
That's the dues.
And I'm willing to keep my motion to cover both because they're so tiny.
But
I just want to make sure based upon what she was trying to do in the substitute to go with that, so.
Understand, but what it sounds like we're gonna be back here again, because when we make the special assessment, I'm still gonna be paying at that rate. And what I'm being sensitive to is that her counsel doesn't appear that they're going to ever pay $4.59 a resident.
Go ahead.
For clarification, if we could leave the first motion as just the first motion and on Rolling Hills, because the second motion on the assessment, we're gonna have to come back and reassess the assessment if it's separate, because it probably has to go up. And so if you're gonna make them if you're gonna separate the assessment, then we have to come back.
So remember this, I never disagree with B, but I think in this case that it would be better just to go with what she's asking for today.
And we'll do the Lawndale separately.
Yeah.
So I withdraw my vote.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're
So-
voting on.
What is the cost? What is the,
2,000,
2,275.
Yes. It would be at the Rolling Hills Estates rate, which is at this point the highest.
But it's probably still gonna get shot down by the city council, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm gonna push for
It's been
it.
properly
One
moved
reason
in.
why we need to just vote on it. Yeah.
Okay, it's been properly moved in second, do reverse, roll call.
Actually. Okay,
I think for dues issues, we might need a full roll call
yeah,
because it's in the bylaws.
Okay.
okay, so.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, through Jackie, can you confirm then the fiscal implications of this motion?
Fiscal implications of this motion were that we probably were going to make the dues for Rolling Hills zero, and they were probably dropping out because that's what their council voted on.
No, I'm sorry, the proposal by Mayor Butts.
Okay, Mayor Butts's proposal puts $2,275. Rolling Hills should be paying, according to our assessment, $7,700. So it's $5,000 difference, but then if you look at what the Rolling Hills Council did, it probably is $2,000 more because they were going to drop out. So if she can get her council to agree, because the current motion is they're dropping out.
Thank you.
So you'll be ahead, but you won't have zip, you'll have something.
The full amount in. Yeah, the full amount is in the.
Before you have the full amount.
But yeah, but that's being modified by the motion.
Chair, can we call?
It's being modified by the motion. David, roll call.
Okay, Person?
Clarify the motion, please.
They're paying 5,000 less.
The motion was to have Rolling Hills Estates.
Rolling Hills.
Rolling Hills.
Hills.
Rolling Hills dues be 2,275.
Everybody got it now?
Sure, okay.
Carson,
No.
Sedendo,
Yes.
Gardena,
No.
Hawthorne,
Stay.
Hermosa Beach,
No. We pay them too.
Inglewood,
Yes.
Lawndale,
Twice, yes.
Lamita,
No.
LA is not present, Manhattan Beach,
No.
Palos Verdes Estates,
No,
Rancho Palos Verdes.
Not here.
Redondo Beach,
Yes.
Rolling Hills,
yes,
Rolling Hills Estates,
No.
Torrance,
Yes.
LA County District 2,
Abstain.
LA County District 4. Six yeses.
Fails. Six, yeah, it fails. It's 6 to 7 to 3.
That motion is not passed.
We have to.
Yeah, so now we have to go now, motion for the actual dues as presented. Entertain a motion.
Did we want to talk about?
Yeah.
Lawndale's issue?
Special assessment outside of the, but then I think there were 3 scenarios, right?
Oh, is it 3 scenarios or only one?
The only thing that would change is if you keep the full amount in and you don't increase your special assessment, then the formula by city would change. So individual city dues could change, but
Okay.
the bottom line would stay the same
Based upon the formula.
based upon changing the formula, right? So if you kept the assessment as it is, the amount as it is, but you pull it out, then we would still assess all the cities with that. It would just be done by the categories, the 30,000, those.
So
categories.
if Lawndale's assessment is removed, does it creates greater money on the other cities?
She doesn't want it to be removed. She wants it to be
Once it in there.
In
it-
there.
For 1 year?
Separate.
for 1
Yes.
year.
So what it means is it'll just be pulled out separately, but then the formula will change for all the cities. Every city will have a different amount that would be paying.
One of the things that I did mention at the Lawndale City Council, because I was there, was maybe there would be a way to make a part of this motion, passing the assessment as part of the dues and saying that for Lawndale next year, you would look at their dues, because Lawndale is the only city that did not use the assessment. So they should get like a assessment. So the idea would be to sort of
Like
make
credit?
next year, if they don't want to pay the
That's what it is.
assessment, we can discuss their dues separately. That's just.
What did you want, Bernadette?
Compromise.
What was-
It was just an act of good faith, I think, for the rest of the board. I argued to get the special assessment to get agreed upon. We had a few that didn't want to. Said, look, I'll get you this way, their comfort level. If it's just for the sake of the number showing differently, was to show them as separate on the billing. So I think that would go along with them, but I did get them to agree to pay it, so it's just gonna be 2 checks instead of 1. So, that's what I'm asking the board.
So would that be a notation, just theirs is possibly is a yes based upon what it is currently, but just has to come back the following year anyway for a vote based upon that assessment?
Well, I'm just suggesting that you consider allowing them to do that.
Yeah.
And then you're not affecting. the vote.
So it would be just us, would show, I'm sure they would agree to that as well.
We just pull it out.
what? Yeah, no, I think that needs to be.
Okay.
My point was that that needs to be separate.
Yes.
Needs to remain separate.
If it remains separate, I think some of the dues goes up. That's what happens.
It would be free. It wouldn't be part of it wouldn't be broken out by the dues formula that we use. And the amounts would change per city.
I still.
Or we could keep it in, I mean, it's in there now.
So would Palos Verdes, the state want to have the same process of it being separated out?
House versus Estates been paying the assessment. I think what I've got here, and I'm not sure,
They don't?
is this, if Palos Verdes Estates is an example, if you separate the dues and assessment, you're gonna end up with probably paying more. You'll pay about $900 more than if you combine the assessment, because the assessment formula is more fair.
Well, I understand that. My issue again is that I think it's disingenuous to come and say, hey, we have this pilot program for 3 years. Let's see how it looks. And then after 1 year, smear it into the general pot. And that's been in effect 1.
No, 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 more year to go. I think that I don't like the optics of it. I don't think it's appropriate optics. I think that the point of a pilot program is at the end of the pilot program, you assess. You're assuming that it's just fine. Okay, let's go. It's going to go on forever. But we, the board and we, the members, have an opportunity at the end of year 3 to say, yes, we want to keep doing this, or no, we don't.
Absolutely, but in fairness, I'm not doing this. We have gotten feedback from the board saying that this is a program that they really love, and the regional planner is something that we should be doing as a COG. So based on that, and based on the fact that we have done it 2 years, we felt we would roll it in because it's fair to most cities. The formula is fair, and you actually mostly pay less in the smaller cities.
Additional funding coming in the next fiscal year of programs that also have to be implemented.
Mr. Chair. Oh, sorry, go on.
Well, I'm so, yeah, and while I'm sorry, I didn't support the approach. I personally think this thing needs to go back to the finance committee, and I think they need to do some more work. And I think that the banding methodology of the planner, I think makes sense for the general dues, and then you could maybe combine that if you want, maybe recommend combining that if you want. And I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
All right. Mr. Chair, briefly, Justin Massey, Hermosa Beach. Jackie, in terms of the members' feedback, this formula for dues has been to the finance committee, the steering committee. Has it been to any other committees? Steering committee was a near unanimous recommendation for the dues that staff proposes. Okay, I love all the suggestions. They seem to me to be great suggestions to take up for next year's dues methodology creation cycle. Ad hoc decision-making at this stage of the process doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And it's rife with setting a bad practice for the future. So for that reason, it doesn't really appeal to me. Thanks, Mr. President.
Motion. John, did we got a motion? A motion on the floor? Making a motion for?
The motion. No, keep the special assessment separate. And kind of continue.
Motion by Londale. Need a second?
I'll second.
D. It's been properly moved in second. Roll call vote.
Carson,
Yes.
Bendo,
Yes.
Ardina,
Yes.
Hawthorne,
Yes.
Hermosa,
No.
Inglewood,
Yes.
Mondale,
Yes.
Lamita,
Yes.
LA is not present, Manhattan Beach,
Yes.
Palos Verdes Estates,
No.
Rancho Palos Verdes, John De Beach,
Support us on the metro, yes.
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Torrance,
Yes.
That
LA
passes.
County District 2,
Yes.
and District 4.
Abstain.
Yeah, okay, that passes. So we will come back with the assessment separate, but did you want to vote on the dues now?
Can we have that discussion
That's
take
what we
place?
do.
Right.
You voted on the dues with the assessment separate.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yes.
we just did that.
Oh,
okay.
I thought it was to have it separate, and then we would have a meeting to discuss how that would pan out.
We did,
So everyone knows.
it's separated.
Okay, so the dues is separate from the assessment, and the dues are option 3. So it's passed. Okay, thank you.
Oh.
I didn't get that. Okay.
No, I didn't understand. Okay, yeah. I didn't understand. I thought this was going to go to another meeting like we're talking about for the May meeting to discuss how that would work out, because you were saying it would be different if it were separate, and then we would need that information.
based on this motion, we'll plug in the dues. And then we'll come back with what we need for the assessment
Assessment.
in the budget, and we'll figure that out as we bring back the budget.
We didn't want it to be the same,
Voted on.
be separate.
So,
They gotta come back to you.
so we can.
Get another formula.
Yes,
No, well,
but
no,
it's already in place.
yeah, there's a formula in place for the assessment. And the dues have passed and the assessment will come back
Oh, I
in the
didn't,
budget.
we weren't approving it. I would say no if I were approving the dues. That was not understood in the motion. The motion was just
You want to
keeping
change your
it
vote?
separate. Yes.
Because it was a layered motion.
Okay, I guess.
It was two things in the same thing, but said no, you don't want to have it together.
Okay, so just change your vote.
Want to change your vote? You change your vote?
Yes, I have to.
Okay.
Because I wasn't.
You got that,
voting for
David?
those dues.
Yeah, there's still enough votes.
Yeah, so.
The vote is no.
Yeah, because.
Okay. Transportation report?
Okay, transportation report. The next item, I lost my agenda here. First item on the transportation. I'm sorry.
Do you want me to start, Jackie?
Yes, the Measure M applications.
Yeah, we approved the Measure M MSP applications and the Measure R Transit Investment Program funding recommendations. We heard a report on the use of SEP funds for Inglewood and considered the motion from the city of Inglewood. And we heard a report on the non-EIR reports that go along with a decision on what the locally preferred alternative will be for the Green Line extension to Torrance.
Okay, but you need a motion on the Measure M project applications. Did you want to, David, did you want to say anything about them?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they're in the packets. We were able to recommend funding for all of the applications that we received because we phase funding for the projects now. It may lead to fewer projects being approved in the next few cycles, because we have a pretty large program of projects at this point. And we have to prioritize completing projects that we've started before we continue programming new funds. So we might have a smaller new project list in upcoming cycles. But apart from that, no other real big issues to point out.
We need a motion.
Entertain a motion for the Measure M.
I move.
The property moved, 2 seconds.
Who's the motion? Okay.
Reverse roll call.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next is the request from the city of Inglewood, and I just wanted to go through what you have in your packet. Because there are three items that are important in your packet, besides Mayor Butts' motion, which I'm not going to talk about. The three items of the memo, which talks about the situation of the Inglewood Transit Connector being in trying to obtain enough funding to get a full funding agreement from the federal government, and the request from the city of Inglewood to suspend work on the Sentinel grade separation and give that money or reprogram that money, reallocate it from the Sentinel grade separation to the Inglewood Transit Connector. There's a letter and two letters. One letter is to send to Metro to reallocate that money, and it is based on the Transportation Committee recommendation. You were sent a revised letter. The revised letter that you were sent, thanks to Inglewood's consultant, helped update some of the numbers because but it does not change any of the recommendations. So it just clarifies the numbers. And also, one of the things our chair called me and said that the letter never says City of Inglewood, which I guess we'll add this word Inglewood into our letter. And then the second letter that's in there is a letter to Metro asking for $22 million to be restored to the COG account. $22 million was removed from the COG account on a commitment that we made several years ago. That was a contingent commitment. The contingencies were never met. And so, but we found out that Metro took that money from the COG anyway. So we're asking for it to be restored. So there's the memo, the letter on the reallocation, and the letter on the restoration. And the motion before you is like a different tiered motion. The Transportation Committee's motion talks about agreeing with the city to suspend Sentinel grade separation, taking the available funds, which are anticipated to be 79.3 million and from our sub-regional equity account and 22 million from this cost overrun, which is 101.3 million that would go to Inglewood's transit connector for something called a backstop reserve. I'm not going into a lot of detail because hopefully you've read this, but we would ask for a written commitment that funds will only be used for the backstop. And that if the full funding agreement from the federal government does not come, needs to come by the first quarter of 2024. If the funding agreement comes by 2024, then all the unused funds that were never used for the backstop would come back to the COG in June, no later than June 30th, 2028, or an extension could be asked for at that time. If the full funding agreement is not received by first quarter 2024, the funds would go back to the Sentinel grade separation, and they would have 1 year to tell us how they could create a fully fundable project. Because what's happened in the Sentinel grade separation is that the costs have gone up 2 to 3 times since they asked for the initial money. There was another motion that was approved that if the in 2028, when the funds come back, they come back to the Council of Governments, and that motion passed. And then the third motion was to send the $22 million letter. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that since the time that the Transportation Committee met, Infrastructure Working Group met, and they had a motion, and they had a long discussion. They had a motion that any allocated right now for the people mover transit connector, if not used, should come back to the COG for reallocation, not the Sentinel grade separation. And that is the only difference they had with the Transportation Committee. So what's before you is the Transportation Committee with an explanation of the Infrastructure Working Group objects to that one recommendation. And I'll turn it over to you, Chris, if you want to add.
Yeah, I would add that we had a very long meeting at transportation going through the different contingencies on this. And we decided that, not contingency in the construction sense, the different potential outcomes. And what we came up with these 3 items was that it protected 2 key decision points. The first one being that relieving traffic in Inglewood was the thrust of this funding. And the most important and the only viable project on that currently is the ITC. The ITC takes priority by logistical sense and in a practicality sense over the Sentinel grade. So this would, in the first sense, reinforce the ability of that project to go forward. And if that project had limitations or that project was not able to continue, then those funds would return to their original piece, which is Sentinel grade, because we would no longer be doing ITC. And then the last decision point being, if ITC is no longer, or ITC is complete, the money comes back for reprogramming. If Sentinel grade extension, if it goes back to Sentinel grade extension has to come up with a way to report back its funding gap. And presuming they can do that, that goes ahead. If they cannot, that money will once again come back for programming. So we preserved what we think is the flexibility and authority of the COG to use funds for transportation, while at the same time satisfying Inglewood's desire and all of our regional benefit of fixing the traffic congestion in and around the entertainment complexes. So we thought this was the best way to accomplish both of those goals. We poured through an exhausting amount of detail, as you can imagine, on a Monday afternoon, Monday morning, and came to this.
I think we've got some public comments.
Yeah, we have Chris.
Maybe the mayor wants.
Chair, I have a
Maybe. Well, hold on. Mayor Butts.
Thank you very much. First of all, Chris, with what you just explained, you could have been elected mayor of Inglewood. That was excellent. Excellent. So I've just got a few brief remarks, although they're not even needed after that, but I want to express my sincere appreciation for your consideration of this item today. There was a very thoughtful conversation at the Transportation Committee earlier this month. Everybody there, except for one, recognized the importance of addressing the mobility challenges that we face in Inglewood, particularly as they relate to being able to allow the monies that come with the people that come into the city to migrate their way throughout the South Bay and through the coast. I made the point that We really don't have hotels in Englewood. We don't have the dining infrastructure as yet because the leases at SoFi are very expensive at the SoFi campus. And so people are going to be eating all over the South Bay. They're going to be in hotels when they come into town, all over the South Bay. So transportation in Englewood has an impact on the desirability to come to these events. It's evident in your recognition of the ITC project. I want to call it the super train. It's a more elegant solution that will more effectively address the mobility issues than the grade crossing. Although if we don't have the train, the grade crossing is really, really important. We're at a point with the project where the allocation of the sub-regional equity program funds for use as a backstop is extremely critical to the project. Now, here's the thing. Backstop is not the same as a contingency. We have contingency monies built into the financing of the project. However, the FTA has some pretty arcane rules. And one thing they want is a backstop. The backstop is meant to be there. Well, if there's an earthquake, a force of nature, because they only want to fund projects they know are going to be completed. And so we can't proceed in our efforts to secure this grant. We've assembled $765 million in grants. That's unheard of for a city of 9 square miles on 110,000. And so it's unheard of that we would be in a national conversation for close to $1 billion. So by making this investment, we will maintain our momentum in advancing the project with the goal of having it ready for passenger service by the 2028 Olympics. So again, I want to thank you for your consideration. Chris, I want to thank you for your presentation, and I ask everyone for an aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let me go to, before we go back in here, let me get them out. Chris, your hand is up.
Good evening, directors. My name is Chris Hannon with the Los Angeles Orange County's Building Construction Trades Council, and wanted to call in this evening and offer our support for the City of Inglewood's request. The Inglewood Transit Connector project is critical to relieving traffic and congestion for the residents of Inglewood and the surrounding cities. It not only will assist residents in being able to move around their city and their cities, it'll also give guests coming to the entertainment district a better experience, a more environmentally friendly way to move about the city and get to those entertainment venues. And I lastly want to close with the jobs that it's going to create. These are going to be great jobs with the local hire under the project labor agreement. These are careers, and we're going to have an opportunity to bring many, many residents of the South Bay cities into our unions for lifelong careers. So again, we ask for all of your support for the City of Inglewood's request and look forward to building this very critical project and bringing relief to the residents and giving the guest a better experience. Thank you.
Chris. Next is Jake.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Jake Ettinger here on behalf of Senator Ben Allen's office. I would also like to reiterate the senator's support. Previously, we spoke at the Transportation Committee meeting and supported the City of Inglewood's request for the South Bay COG to reallocate the South Bay sub-regional funds as a backstop for the Inglewood Transit Connector. I think we've already heard from others about the benefits of this project. But as we know, we've failed to build enough public transportation here in the region for decades. And this is an important project to make up for that and connect people from across the South Bay and the region to SoFi, Kia Forum, the Hollywood Park, and the soon to be opened Intuit Dome. It will be a huge investment and support the entire region. And I would urge you to all support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Eli?
Yeah, hi, my name is Eli Lippman. I'm Executive Director of Move LA. We are a nonprofit advocacy organization that worked on Measure R and Measure M in building the coalition to support those and get those funded. I would just say on that, when we were working on Measure R and Measure M, we wanted to make sure that there was some flexibility. We wanted to ensure that the COGS had the ability to reinvest the money that your taxpayers are paying, that all of you are paying back into your community, and have the ability to make those decisions. And that's what you're doing right here. Things change, right? The long range transportation plan that we saw 15 years ago when we passed Measure R, and then 7 years ago with Measure M, didn't anticipate all the entertainment in the South Bay. And so it's good that you are being flexible and considering these changes, because I think it's critical for the region. When I had the opportunity to kind of go and visit and do a tour, for me, it really highlighted the fact that it's larger by twice as much than LA Live. And I think that changes sort of the nexus in this region in terms of where people are going to go for their entertainment. And you should have high quality transportation options. You should have the ITC and bus and rail throughout the South Bay region. And that's what we need to build. And so we're supportive of this project. We're supportive of this backstop. I think you've structured it in a really smart way so that the money is eligible back to the COG if it isn't used as a backstop. And thank you so much for allowing us the time and for moving this along in such a creative way.
Thank you, Eli.
Thank you, Eli.
Sorry, did you say
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Oh, hi. My name's John. I'm a resident of Lawndale. And I also support you guys giving as much money as possible to the city of Inglewood and Mayor Butts for this project. Obviously, the Olympics are coming up, and I think it's critical that we have easy and accessible transportation to SoFi and the Inglewood area. So I fully support you guys moving money to this. And I'll talk later about this under the green line, but I also support taking money from the green line and giving it to Inglewood to help move this project forward, because I think it's more important that we build transportation to the entertainment district of Inglewood than building transportation to the refinery district of Torrance. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Okay, John. You got you. Sergio.
Okay, John.
Hi, Sergio Correa with Councilmember Tim McCosker's office, City of Los Angeles. Sorry for not being there in person. My mom's been in the hospital for 8 days and I brought her home. So I'm okay. Thank you. Councilman McCosker wish he could be there today. As you may or may not know, we're in the middle of budget hearings and he's on the budget committee in the city council. So he is stuck at City Hall to this moment right now. And so he's unable to attend, but he wanted me to come today to express his support of the project before you. Understands how important it is to make sure that we have good transportation systems, especially for the 2020 Olympics. He knows this will be a great job creator for in the area. He's happy that we have a project labor agreement in place. And so I'm today to express his support for the item before you.
Thank you, Sergio. Trina?
Good evening. I am Trina Lawson, and I am a resident of Inglewood and a business owner. And I just wanted to address the council to express my sincere support for Mayor Butt's motion to reprogram South Bay sub-regional equity funds to prioritize the backdrop for the Inglewood Transit Connector project. The ITC is designed to address a critical gap from the South Bay by connecting the Metro K line to the Kia Forum, the SoFi Stadium, Hollywood Park, Intuit Dome, as well as all of the residences there and also businesses that will serve the South Bay in that region. The ITC is so crucial to reducing traffic, but also increasing safe travel. We don't talk a lot about that. We're gonna need safe travel for the community. Like so many other residents and business owners, I am in full support of reprogramming the funds to make this project a huge success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trina. You went, Christian? You went home to get online, okay?
Yeah, well, I just want, as the former transportation chair, I want to just say we've been working on this for years, even though this is not the ideal way I think Mayor Butts wanted to do it. And I would urge my colleagues to vote aye. Secondly, as someone who just took the Green Line to go to SoFi Stadium and had to walk 45 minutes in the rain from the rail to the stadium, I don't think that's how we want to treat people that are going to $1 billion investment into the city of Inglewood. So I would urge aye.
Thank you for that, Christian. Steve?
Good evening, council. My name is Steve Cotton. I am the owner of Inglewood Clothing Store, and I'm here tonight to represent a few local businesses here in Inglewood, California. I just would like to express my support for Mayor Butt's motion to reprogram South Bay's Regional Equity Funds to prioritize the funding for the ITC project. After looking over the plans for the development, I feel that the ITC will help the congestion in Inglewood. And overall, if we take care of the congestion, we can get more and more tourists to come to our local businesses. And that's the goal. We want to get tourists to be able to come in and out of our city and be able to shop with our local businesses here. So overall, I am rooting for your support of Mayor's motion in order to ensure that these resources and allocated are the best for our city of Inglewood. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Is that everybody? Oh,
Thanks, everybody online. We had a couple people.
Here, that are here.
okay. Person? Anybody? Oh, I thought it was.
Wait, who's the hand over here?
There's a table in the back.
Oh, my.
Oh,
Please state your name too.
Good evening, city government. I'm Ms. Polk, and I'm the senior citizen resident of Inglewood. I'm not gonna, give you a whole spiel about the corridor of connectors, because everyone has said it so eloquently about wanting it connected. And I, for one, I definitely do. I was a bus driver in rural Hawaii, and so I know what transportation means to the residents, not only there, but especially here in Inglewood and Thorn and all the cities around. So that said, I definitely promote what's funding for the project. And I pray that you will too. Thank you.
thank you. Next thing.
This is because she's my sister, it means nothing.
Next thing.
They can stand there.
Good evening, I'm William Mitchell, District Director for Assembly District 61. Assemblymember Tina McKinnon, since her strong support, continued state level and city level support for this project, and she thinks the ITC project is the utmost important, and we want you to vote aye tonight.
You are?
Bless you.
I say I need to be on camera. Hi, my name is Kim Turner. I'm the transit director for the Torrance Transit System near the refinery district. I just want to say that we support Inglewood's request because as a transit grantee, we know how hard it is with the FTA. They're always putting restrictions on the money. So with that being said, we're here to support you to make the change, get the backstop until such time, you get your project going. And whatever you need from Torrance, we're here to help you. So thank you very much. Boom.
Thank you. More comments? Any other?
Is that for Green Line or for this? Sorry, it's not my meeting, but I just hear.
Nikki Negrete Mitchell, Redondo Beach, and the one thing that hasn't been said, what I really want to share, is the first time I ever listened to a Metro Board of Directors meeting. Mayor Eric Garcetti, former Mayor Eric Garcetti at the time, was railing about how the one priority, the one project that needed to be done in time for the Olympics was the connection between LAX and SoFi Stadium. He said, because, I remember his tone and everything, he said it was because imagine how embarrassing it would be for athletes coming from all over the world, their families, dignitaries from all of those countries, and get stuck in that horseshoe nightmare at LAX and not have a way to get to SoFi. And that was, it stuck with me, and from then on, I was hooked. And anyway, I also, Redondo Beach, we support the ITC. And I think everything else has been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I entertain a motion.
Motion. Second. I have a comment.
Further discussion?
David Lesser, Manhattan Beach, Mayor Butts, it's good to see you again. I had a 4-year absence from council. For 8 years, I served on the COG and on its steering committee, and this was the first time that our city staff have contacted me about a motion that's on the board agenda and expressed some concern. I personally have huge support for you, what you've done for our region, for your community, and what you do on the Metro board for all of us. But the concern that staff raised, and I'd welcome it, this procedurally is the time to maybe just ask a question, is what about all of the other projects that might be impacted by having this large sum from Measure M go to this one project? That was the concern that staff asked me to be considering as the vote on this amendment came forward tonight. So I want to go through the chair as to what would be the best way to address that, particularly because you wear multiple caps on the Metro board as well as your own city.
That is such a good question. Okay. And the first question I have is, my staff would not dare ever ask a question about a prerogative of another elected official. But that being said, let me tell you this. There's no change because this money was allocated for the Centinela grade separation. It was already allocated to a project. And all it does is take it and say it is now sits over here in the corner as the backstop requirement that the FTA has to give some $900 million. And so if it doesn't come to pass, this same money, which is allocated to the grade separation, goes back to the grade separation project. And then it becomes my responsibility to find from Metro other sources to cover the escalation of costs. So the reality is there is no change in the availability of the funding, not one dime. So they can rest very easy.
Mr. Chair, I've got a similar question. I think we all are appreciative of you, Jim, for what you've done for us on the Metro board, but there are credible issues raised about this in staff. What I don't think has been made very clear is that we had a recommendation from the Transportation Committee, which I think Chris articulated pretty well, and I think is the motion on the floor. There's also an alternative recommendation from the Infrastructure Working Group. And as I understand it, both of those recommendations say, all right, we'll reprogram this money from the Centinela grade separation project to be used as a backstop for the Inglewood Transit Connector project. But the difference is, if once it's no longer needed as a backstop for the Inglewood Transit Connector project, if I'm not mistaken, the Infrastructure Working Group said it should come back to the COG to be reallocated according to our normal processes. And the Transportation Committee said it should revert back to the Centinela grade separation project. So that, if I can clarify, the transportation, there's two different stage gates. The Transportation Committee said 2024 stage gate, if the ITC is a no-go, then this automatically goes back to Centinela, pending Centinela finding a way to close what we believe is a current funding gap. And then in 2028, if it is unused, then it comes back for programming for the biggest transit need, whatever that may be. The IWG, their group, that 2024 stage gate is different. Rather than automatically reverting back to Centinela, it would look more like it does in 2028. It would be, okay, now it comes back to the COG directly to decide what's the highest best use of this money.
And one more thing, one of the points that was made was that things change. These are multi-year, sometimes decade-long projects, and things change. And so I wouldn't want to see any city punished for being flexible and dreaming bigger for the entire region because another opportunity came along. It would have been extremely short-sighted to say, well, we won't go for 1.6 billion in federal, state, and local funding for a project that benefits the region, because we're afraid we're going to lose $119 million that we have in the hand for the grade separation. You see what I'm saying? That we would do that to all of us. Every one of us that got an allocation found a more noble, higher reaching visionary project and said, we're going to go for it. Oh, no, we better not, because then we'll lose what we have allocated to us. That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's, I mean, that's the argument. That's an exception to the way that we've done things in the past. This may be worthy of an exception because of its regional benefit, the Inglewood Transit Connector. But if I'm right, the motion on the floor, the money, once it's done being used as a backstop, or if by Q1 2024, the FTA hasn't provided the full funding agreement, it goes back to the Sentinel grade separation project. Am I right? That said, Sentinel grade, we project there to be a big cost gap there as well. So the idea would be Inglewood would have this money back to Sentinel grade extension and then have a year to close that funding gap. And if they couldn't, then the COG has the purview to do what it will with the money. So this could be a small, you know, ultimately an academic difference between the two proposals. Right. So just in that scenario, so let's say that the ITC is not funded by Q1 2024. Correct. The money goes back to the Sentinel grade separation project. And how long does Inglewood have to fully fund the Sentinel grade separation project before? They have 1 year to have a project plan to attach a funding source, not necessarily have it funded, but a plan.
Have identified a source to close the gap of what it would take to finish the grade separation. It doesn't mean that it'll be built by then. It doesn't mean that it'll be funded by then. It means that there has to be a plan in place to close the gap.
Okay, and then let's say the full funding agreement does come through by Q1 2024. And this money is part of the backstop. How long is it tied up as a backstop? And what happens to it? The next stage gate is 2028 on that, presuming the thing is completed in 2028 in time for the Olympics. With 2028, that's the next decision point here. And at that point, we'll know a lot more about regional traffic coming out of SoFi and Intuit and YouTube and all those venues as well. So we might look at that point and say, hey, ITC is about complete. Do we need Sentinel grade extension, or is the highest best use of this, you know, helicopter pads for our flying taxis? There could be any number of differences by 2028, but that's the next stage gate.
The reality is this, that I've gotten you all so much money, you won't even remember this 119.
Is that a commitment?
So
Remember when $100 million was a lot of money?
right. So during that 5-year period, from Q1, from now until 2028, there's going to be $100 million tied up as a backstop. If the ITC gets the full funding agreement in time, gets built, where does the backstop go in 2028? So in 2028, it comes back for programming. So it comes back. Now, it's not a clean slate. The idea was that the language in this for the 2028 COG is what will relieve the highest and best traffic issues, you know, the standard sort of thing we want. The presumption is it probably comes back for big program because the ITC being built will have obviated the need for Sentinel grade change. But that's my magic 8-ball though. But if the full funding agreement comes through for the ITC and the money is tied up as a backstop until 2028 and presumably no longer needed because you're going to have the funding, then it comes straight back to the COG. It doesn't revert to Sentinel grade. That's correct. 2028, that stage gate does not revert it directly back to Sentinel grade in 2028. ITC is built 2028. It does not automatically go back to Sentinel grade. If that $130 million would be tied up anyway, if we didn't reprogram it, we'd be building or waiting to build the grade separation anyhow. But that project can't begin because it logistically runs against, in pure geometry, against the ITC. So you can't build them both at the same time.
Construction modalities conflict.
Right. Is there any, last question, is there any detail in terms of what the funding plan for the Sentinel grade separation project has to include by whatever time it is? It's sometime in 2024, right, June? I think that was just the reason we brought in this 1 year to find a funding plan, because those costs seem to be escalating so drastically. Right. Well, I've heard from Inglewood's people directly that the project is not viable. I mean, it may not be in the explosion in cost. It may not be. No. Taking a fishing trip into international waters as we speak. And so we attempted to address that potential, that contingency by that 1 year funding gap measure from 2024 through to 2025. That's how we attempted to address that issue. Like, hey, just because this money comes back doesn't mean it's sequestered forever. You have to come up with a plan to fill a funding gap.
When does that plan have to be provided?
So that is 1 year after Q1 of 2024 to Q1 20. So the end of Q1 2025, they would have to plan to say, this is viable because we found, the great leaf blower of federal money.
Q1, so Q1 2025,
Yes.
but there's no detail in terms of what the funding plan needs to look like, right? It's gonna be up to us as to whether it's adequate.
That's right. That would be up to Inglewood to develop it, up to us to be like, hey, this is the dreams or this is viable.
Okay, does the motion say basically when it comes, that funding plan, if we get to that stage, comes back to us to determine whether it's adequate, and if it's not adequate, the money comes back to the COG?
Let me refer to paper.
Almost.
Yeah.
The motion says, if the full funding agreement is not received for the ITC by Q1 2024, the funds go back to the Sentinel grade separation. You're asking about 2028, I'm sorry.
No, he's asking about
2024, they're in the 1 year period to find a funding plan.
Separation with a check-in by Q1 2025 to determine if this project is fully fundable.
Yeah.
So that's not, it's not, the words aren't funding plans. The words are to determine if it's fully fundable. I don't know if you want to amend that.
Who determines if it's fully fundable in Q1 2025?
Well, I'll volunteer for that.
The COG will have to determine on a report that's been given to them.
And I think that we're very comfortable with there being just this type of discussion when we come back, if that were necessary. I'm very comfortable with.
And they would, then the Inglewood would just give a report back to the COG in relationship to what the funding or the shortfall, if there may be one, or that is fully fundable at that point, and then the COG will bring it back to the board.
So it should, so we can add the word COG if it's
Yeah.
okay with everybody. COG to determine.
And
Yeah, if that's amenable to the maker of the motion.
Maker of the motion.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Okay, second. Okay.
That's all my question.
okay, but I think it was already in there, right?
It wasn't even.
No, it wasn't.
What do we put in there?
Didn't say Sunday call.
Oh, okay.
It was just.
You bring back the information to the COG, but if you got it or you don't.
If we get to that stage.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the groundbreaking instead.
A roll call vote, David.
Okay, Carson,
Yes.
El Segundo,
Yes.
Gardena,
Yes.
Hawthorne,
Enthusiasm, yes.
Hermosa Beach,
Yes.
You're on the first ride, man.
Inglewood,
Oh, yeah.
Never want to be.
yeah,
Yes.
LA City's not here, Manhattan Beach,
Yes.
TV Estates,
Yes.
Convention Osprey is not here, Redondo Beach,
Yes.
Rolling Hills,
Yes.
Rolling Hills Estates,
Yes.
Lawrence,
Torrance and the refinery district say.
LA County District 2,
Yes.
and District 4.
Yes.
That's never gonna go.
It's never going to.
Thank you.
Second best refinery.
Thank you for that, Mayor Butts. Congratulations.
I had those kind of votes, just saying.
I was.
I remember that.
I apologize. I have to go pick up 3 very small angry people.
Okay.
Next item is the green line. And actually, we're not taking any action on this item.
It's just
that
update.
the public hearings are still out there. Steve, did you want to say where Metro is on this?
Public comment period is closed. The Metro's preparing a locally preferred alternative report. That'll come in late or in the summer. They expect to make a decision in September. That's it.
Were people here for public comment on that?
They still here?
Yeah, all these.
Yeah, and there's a few people on online too.
For Green Line?
Yes.
Hello? Yes, good
Hello.
evening.
Oh,
Is it my turn?
Yes,
No,
hello, my
not
name
yet,
is.
Melanie, not yet.
Hey. All right,
Who's here to speak on the green line? It's here now.
hey.
Four. All righty. Let me go with those who are here this time. I went them first.
Okay.
You want them? Peace. She don't want to go first. Look, we getting late. You gotta move it on. Thank you.
Kevin Mitchell, Redondo Beach resident. Transportation corridors are often described as arteries. They transport the lifeblood of communities, mainly commerce. These arteries breathe life into local commercial enterprises by bringing economic traffic to their doorsteps. The mantra of retail businesses, location, 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 underscores this concept. The basic planning for transportation infrastructure must address this idea in order to be successful. Ridership reflects actual destination. For the Sea Line extension, this means using Hawthorne Boulevard as it was intended. The historic red car line used the corridor because it was and still is a retail business district. In fact, the DEIR has identified some historical structures that illustrate this, all of which have some historical context and could be listed in the National Register of Historical Places, according to the DER. The plain truth is that Hawthorne Boulevard is in desperate need of revitalization. It is a traditional corridor for travel between Inglewood and the South Bay, and as mentioned, has hosted a commuter rail previously. In contrast, the residentially adjacent row has only been used as a freight line. Historically, the row maps all over the LA basin has been an important infrastructure, but not for people moving. People are not interested in going to refineries. In fact, they want to go to the airport, they want to go to sports and shopping venues. Primarily, they want to travel safely, then be delivered to their destination, not to the next bus. People will sit in traffic and pay expensive parking to secure their convenience and safety. The famous Hawthorne Boulevard landmark, the Galleria, is being transformed into the South Bay Social District, new retail, new hotel, new live work spaces, and hopefully a new energy. That intersection at Hawthorne, Artesia, and Redondo Beach represents a crossing for all the cities affected by this project. At that crossing, our cities can either flourish or languish. Please make Hawthorne Boulevard work out.
Thank you. Next.
Appreciate you.
I know. Y'all get the first rise. You know what the first? Get it, get it. Go ahead.
Hi, Nikki Negretti Mitchell, Managing Partner of Right of Safe for Redondo and Lawndale. And to the rest of the South Bay cities, I cannot emphasize enough how lacking of any substance the draft EIR studies for the right of way turned out to be. I say that knowing not everybody actually reads it, and the ones that do can't possibly have the proper context or knowledge of the true conditions in that land. So how can anyone know what to look for? Not many are really aware of just how many homes are there housing families, children, and retirees just living their lives. There is a vast difference between taking a measurement and doing meaningful studies. For example, Metro couldn't figure out why vibration level is higher on the freight train's early trip north versus later trip back south. For us, it's obvious. Tankers are full on the way up to El Segundo and on the way back to Denver. So it's lighter and the seismic shaking isn't as strong. A half meaningful study would discover that. They would talk to people and have it figured out before publishing a study for public consumption. Does anybody here really think it's such a good idea to commit to that level of immense industrial construction just a few feet from homes with actual people inhabiting them, not knowing what lies in and under the dirt? You all understand the level of risk. Is it okay for anybody to be dismissive of the very real hazards right next to people living in their homes? You watch the news, you must be aware that rail regulations have been incrementally chipped away at, and the consequences are all of the derailments we're hearing about. And that's just a fraction of the concern. conflating the unavailable right-of-way at great construction cost as being cheaper with expediting for the Olympics is a complete oxymoron. First of all, the at-grade part can't happen due to emergency response necessities, and that brings the cost up. But that isn't accounted for. Instead, they list the true option as one of the 4 other alternatives, separated grade. That costs more than the basic cost they list as 1.9 billion. What's even more absurd is characterizing that as cheaper and then saying they want it expedited for 3 more years to make the Olympics. Those 2 factors would bring the costs up even higher and probably more than elevated on Hawthorne. Now they're talking about some 20-year-old deal. It's not our fault this transpired before proper outreach and studies were ever performed. That's not our problem as community stakeholders. Encourage them to stop trying to dump it on our community. A couple of corporate businesses does not trump over 1,000 homes. That just doesn't compare. They can't see what an advantage to businesses the other option is. As leaders, please help with viable solutions for the betterment of the entire South Bay, rather than abide by a selfishly misguided, disingenuous campaign for one city to get the easy way out, no matter how many they step on. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, good evening. I am Rose Rodriguez, and I live on the road. I'm against the road, the
Hold on,
DEIR.
excuse me. Wait a minute.
Yeah. What's wrong?
Who's talking?
Who's talking?
Rose Rodriguez.
Okay, I haven't done anything of that point. I'm still dealing with the in-house, and I'll get to you guys in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good evening. My name is Holly Osborne, retired engineer from Redondo Beach. Last time I spoke to you, some of you on April 6th, it was about the rather dismissive and uninformed way the DEIR discussed the row in Lawndale, describing the area between Manhattan Beach Boulevard and Artesia as, quote, residences that were constructed between the 1930s and 1970s. This completely ignored the newer houses built in the 1980s on the west side of the row between 170th and Artesia, which narrowed the row by 25 feet, so that's only 75 feet wide. Metro must not have been looking at the right maps. And they also ignored the fact that some townhomes were built on the row on the east side in 2000. But now I'm going to continue south of Artesia and go to Redondo Beach. Metro describes the dwellings on the west side as, quote, some condominium developments. There are 3 condominium developments, and the first and the largest going south is Breakwater Village, which is a 55-year-plus community of 191 units that are owned by individuals. The complex was built around 2007, and 20 of the units are affordable. Metro has listed elsewhere properties such as churches and schools that are used extensively during the daytime and evening hours and thus are more sensitive to noise. Apparently, residential complexes where most of the people are retired do not count. The 5 to 7 years plus of construction noise and afterwards LRT noise will drastically diminish their quality of life. Now, there are 2 other complexes, 27 units and 18 units respectively, and I showed a diagram last time of how close the freight train is going to swing to those complexes in violation of the separation distance required between freight train tracks and pipelines. Okay, but I want to just mention something else. The diagram I showed was this one. You probably can't see it here, but you got it last time. And there are a bunch of green dots where they expect vibration impacts. On the, this is the east side, they've got green dots on every house. On the west side, they have a green dot on every structure. The 191 units get only 2 green dots. So when you count structures affected by the row, it's vastly undercounted. However, even with that vastly undercounted way, the DEIR shows that 133 structures in Redondo are going to be affected versus only 33, no, versus only 11 on Hawthorne. So it's 133 with the deflated count versus 11.
These are the ones that are gonna be impacted by construction noise. So I'm an engineer. I could give you a numerical talk.
Time is up. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I could go on and on about selection of the proposed right of way, the fact that it's cost less. I just want to go into the details of the South Bay really doesn't have the mobility that it should have. Not for the money that we pay and these taxes, not people who utilize our service. Torrance Transit is building a gorgeous RTC, Regional Transit Center, near the refinery district. However, when we talked to the SoFi folks, we found out that a majority of the season ticket holders for the Rams, for the Chargers, live in the South Bay. So we're positioning ourselves to help offset some of the issues at the SoFi by creating a nice place to go for everybody. With that being said, we'd like for the road to, the C line to get to the Torrance Transit Center via the road. Now, I know folks have concerns about if we're near the homes and all that stuff, but Metro is working that out. This won't be the first time that they build a system near homes. Just check out the GO line, check out the East LA line, check out the Expo line, goes through Santa Monica. And yes, these same concerns you're hearing today happens at every project that Metro has. And they find a way to figure out how to appease the community so that they can work together. If we're not going to try to make our transportation system like Europe, because I hear that all the time, you're not like Europe. I can go to Europe and text a bus everywhere. Well, if we're not going to be able to do it now, when? When are we going to be able to do it? I go to Australia, easy. Get on a bus, get on a train, go everywhere. I've lived in Europe, easy. We didn't have to get a car. We use the system. We want to do the same thing here, but it's not happening. We have to fight for everything. The money, like just what the mayor said, ITC. When you ask for money, you don't get the full funded project, you get a portion. Then you get regulations, and it takes forever. The RTC took me almost 14 years. So again, if we don't do it now, the question I'm asking all of you is when? When do you want it? This is the perfect time for us to do it. We have some money towards the project. Let's get it done, and let's get it done before the Olympics. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm Zain Obadji from Redondo Beach.
I'd like to speak, I'm so sorry. I'd like to make a public comment, please.
Yes, he was going to speak and you can speak after him.
Okay, very good.
And I've already addressed this body multiple times about this issue. What I wanted to bring to our attention, I wish we had more of a dialogue with Torrance, because I hear about and I get copies of the mailers that Torrance sends out, including some that supposedly say that this project's going to be completed by the Olympics. It's not. Stop lying to your residents, please, Torrance. This in no way, shape, or form, no matter where it goes, is going to be built by 2028. So I am a season ticket holder for the Chargers. I do go to SoFi. I did vote in favor of the ITC for Inglewood. I do favor public transportation. But I will tell you that I've already gotten the votes to agendize for closed session discussion, the retention of an environmental attorney in Redondo Beach by Redondo Beach to challenge this draft EIR if it is adopted because it's defective. And then that puts the timeline for the completion of this project way far down the line because they got to go through this process again. And you don't think we have a good basis to challenge the draft EIR? Did you listen to Dr. Osborne? That's a new argument I hadn't even heard yet before at City Council. Listen to Nikki Negrete Mitchell. Listen to Kevin Mitchell. This is just a fraction of the people sending us ideas, thoughts, pouring over the draft EIR. After Torrance sent out 144,000 mailers or more, they got 1,000 people to sign on in support of going down the road. That's it. That's paltry. All right. We've got the entire community, 5 council members behind Hawthorne Boulevard. That's where the gallery is going to be redeveloped. We shouldn't nickel and dime in a generational project. We should be doing the best project that develops the maximum amount of ridership. It should no on road. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, sir.
Yes, I'm Ray Holler from Southwest Lawndale, and I live near the road. So I've spoken twice before the Transportation Committee here and the Steering Committee and talked about costs. And where Metro staffers showed for months, this chart right here, most of you remember, and it shows that the road path on this chart would be about $2 billion. And along Hawthorne Boulevard, it's about $3 billion. The problem is there are several problems with this chart, and I think it's grossly misleading. The first is that while cost is important, Metro's own metric is to provide a cost-effective project, and that means cost per ridership. The ridership is higher for the Hawthorne Boulevard path than for the row by Metro's information. Secondly, these are not equal projects here. There are the executive summary and the Metro DEIR, if you look at it, if you include mitigation, the only difference between Hawthorne Boulevard and Row is that Row has a significant and unmitigatable noise problem. Well, they have a fix for that, and that means that you've got to build the trenches under certain crossings, and that'll make this price go up. Secondly, this is construction only now, and there are construction tables that look like this in the DEIR, and they've got lists of tasks, duration, and resources needed for those tasks. And you run that through a spreadsheet, and for both Row and Hawthorne Boulevard, and you find out that Hawthorne Boulevard is not 50% higher, it's 14% higher. So this row should go up because you need the trench to make it equal environmentally, and this number should go down because the construction costs here do not reflect the actual raw flow of data, which a Metro staffer told me this was based on. Now, lastly, this project, none of these projects, the only project that that could be done by the Olympics would be the bus. There's a high frequency bus, and that's lowest cost if you want to go for lowest cost, less cheaper than this. There is no schedule that supports doing any project before the Olympics. And I just need to refer you to the project at Division 20 Rail Yard Portal Widening Turnback Project, which was discussed today and also last week on Metro's meeting, where they're half done. They've consumed all their contingency. They asked for $35 million extra last year, $80 million this year. They're way over. These are enormously complex projects that things happen. I'm an engineer. I know complex projects, you encounter problems, and they tend to run longer. It's harder to get, even though it's contingency, like I say, this project here, $1 billion project, halfway through, they gobbled up all their contingency. So I think the suggestion that any project here besides the high frequency bus that Metro has proposed for this Green Line extension programs or the option that's the only option available. And if you want something to happen before the Olympics, that's the thing you should be voting for. None of the other train programs have a chance of being done by the Olympics. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing.
Thank you. Thank you. All righty now. Who's up already? Christian, you're up?
I think Pat Fury.
Pat Fury, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Honorable Chair, directors, former colleagues, friends, staff, and members of the public. My name is Pat Fury, Torrance resident and former mayor of the city of Torrance, which does include one of the refineries in the South Bay. It also has the largest mall in the South Bay and in Los Angeles. And actually, it's the 5th largest mall in America, including a Nordstrom store. We also have 31 schools with 22,000 students, 15,000 businesses that employ some 40,000 people who come to Torrance for their jobs. I've resided in the South Bay for almost 50 years, and for way too long, the South Bay region has waited for a light rail investment. Please advance the only option for the Sea Line extension to Torrance that builds on the Metro-owned train area, minimizes commuter disruptions, and realizes both environmental and ridership access the soonest. That is the right of way with elevated at grade option. This option leverages existing transit investments by serving new transit in Redondo Beach and in Torrance, which are adjacent to the existing Metro-owned right-of-way easement. The other two options for this project, light rail on Metro's rail right-of-way, trench, and the elevated light rail along Hawthorne Boulevard will require major traffic disruptions. Construction in the area, increased costs up to more than $1 billion, and result in further delays for the project. The elevated Hawthorne Boulevard option is truly inconsistent with the voter-approved funding initiatives and creates accessibility and connectivity issues to the new Redondo Beach Transit Center. I want those who are opposed to the right-of-way option to give some consideration to the mitigation efforts that Metro will be affording them. There will be mitigation efforts to the BNSF rail lines. Without that, they're not going to mitigate it. It will become quieter. And think about the K line or the E line that are running right now, how quiet they are, how well received they were, how people opposed them when they first came up, but now they've embraced them. We have to move forward. And my friends who live up on the hill, many years ago, we talked about how you benefit because Torrance is a major thoroughfare. Many people who live in Palos Verdes, the Palos Verdes Peninsula, the beach cities, travel through Torrance. Alleviating traffic on our streets will alleviate your traffic problems as well. So I thank you all for your time, your consideration. I know eventually we're going to get this finished. And notwithstanding our colleague from Redondo Beach's litigation discussions, I truly believe it's possible if we work together to actually have this done as one of the 28 by 28 projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Melanie?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Melody Lawrence, and I too reside in the refinery district, as it has been stated. I've been an employee of the city. Yeah, well, we're not going to lose that one. My council member representative, Councilman Kaji, I'm sure has found that amusing as well. I'm also an employee of the city of Torrance, and for those who can see the background, in my photo, it is the new gorgeous transit center for the city. But as a resident, I want to say that I support keeping the new passenger rail line extension to Torrance in the existing railroad train area under the right-of-way at grade elevation option. The new light rail extension, called the C line, will bring numerous benefits to the region, including jobs, better mobility options, and as Mayor Fury stated, hopefully reduce traffic down Hawthorne Boulevard. It shouldn't create additional impact to the places don't already have existing trains going through. And the Hawthorne Boulevard option will add a new impact to those areas in our community. I urge you to bring the new light rails where the train passage already exists. In addition, the right-of-way option is also the most cost-effective, will require less time to complete, and will not create additional impacts to Hawthorne Boulevard. So thank you for your time and consideration, and please come visit the transit center when it is done. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelsey? You're still muted.
Hi.
There you go. There you go.
You might hear a toddler in the background, sorry. Hi, I'm Chelsea Schreiber. I live directly adjacent to the row in Lawndale. 8 weeks ago, my dog Morrison was beheaded by the freight train that goes by my house right in front of me and my toddler. Yeah, it was a horrific freak accident that spurred me into action. If in a split second, something so terrible can happen to a dog, it made me horrified to think that it could potentially happen to a kid or an adult too. This is Jackson. It was a split-second accident that has completely changed the direction of the past 2 months of my life. The accident happened just days after the first Metro meeting that I attended, where Jay Gold had a heart attack while speaking to the Metro officials during the public comment period. Interestingly enough, while on the way to the hospital, Jay's ambulance was held up by a train. Since being spurred into action by Maury's death, I've learned more and more about the Metro trains that could potentially be built by my home. At first, I was concerned about the noise and the construction of the project, but after seeing my dog's head fly from under the train 20 feet to the street, now I'm more concerned about the welfare of the community. The train is built by our house, and in 10 years later, I hear about a child being killed by the train. I won't be able to live with myself. I went on a tour of William Green Elementary School last week, where my son will be attending TK next year. And I realized that the only way for him to get to the school is by crossing the train tracks. Imagine a whole community of little kids navigating 2 additional train tracks with 200 to 300 trains a day. Somebody's going to get killed. It doesn't matter the safeguards that are put in place. If the train were to be built down Hawthorne on a raised platform, that risk is completely gone. It's just common sense. I want to encourage the COG, Metro board members, including you, Mayor Butts, to not just consider the cost of the project and monetary value, but the potential cost of human lives. Just yesterday, I read an article about children who are crawling under trains to get to and from school because of infrastructure problems. Those trains unexpectedly move. The same thing is going to happen to them as happened to my dog. Human life is extremely fragile and precious, and something that the draft EIR doesn't take into consideration. Speaking of, after my dog died, the railway wouldn't even take my calls until I kicked up a fuss about it. So any information you have about accidents in your reports with the freight train is incorrect. I not only want the COG to consider human lives, I desperately want Lawndale to be considered, period. Seems to me and to my neighbors that the welfare of our community isn't being thought about at all. Since learning about the project, I and my neighbors have been going door to door talking to people about the issue. And 90% of the people we talk to have no idea it's even happening. If the Metro Board wants to pick the locally preferred option, from what I've heard here in my community, the row is not the locally preferred option. People are excited to have public transportation. They just don't want it down a neighborhood, especially with the recent uptick in derailment news. It won't just be near homes. The train will someday be in homes. Simply put, it's too dangerous. There is no betterment of the common good if people may die from this choice. Our community wants it down Hawthorne Boulevard, and everybody I talk to is in agreement. It's the logical place to put a commuter train like the Metro Green Line. To Butts, our neighborhood desperately would like to invite you to come meet us. If you will indeed be voting on the issue shortly, we are cordially inviting you and the rest of the Metro Board to join us for a meet and greet and a tour of our neighborhood where the project is being proposed. Nope, not you. I sent the invite via email, social media, and fax. Please let me know. Give me one more second. Thank you for listening to me. I truly hope the recent horrific experience will open your eyes to see the real danger that the train possesses and will, most importantly of all, our residents, save our residents' lives. If you put it down Hawthorne Boulevard raised, I beg of you, do that. Mitigation efforts won't bring somebody's child back when they're decapitated by the train.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen.
Hi. Colleen Villegas, Lawndale. I just want to strongly urge you to support the Hawthorne Boulevard option for the Metro Green Line. The row option would irreversibly change the lives of the 1,000 plus households living along the row in both Lawndale and Redondo Beach. The pressurized gas lines, disruption to wildlife, loss of our only green space are just part of the problem. This option would, in some cases, put trains feet from homes. In addition, the vibration from hundreds of trains per day has the potential to damage our homes' foundations. Finally, the risk of serious health conditions due to the significant and unavoidable noise and air pollution make it too risky. Hawthorne Boulevard is our only viable option. The Metro belongs in the business corridor, not along the row where it would permanently change the landscape of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh.
Hi.
Hi, thank you. My name is Anderson. I'm a resident of Lawndale, right along the row. And it's been incredibly emotional to listen to some of the mindless growth for growth's sake. I'm glad you guys built a beautiful transit center. And I'm sure you could afford it with your 15,000 businesses and a Nordstrom's. And with all due respect, Mr. Mayor or former mayor, I know that if you lived this close to the train, here's my property line, and that line right there is the train tracks. It is only 14 paces.
Your signal's low. Bandwidth too low.
How close these are to the homes here. There is no way you're fit free trains. There's no way. And so
the bandwidth is back. Kind of complete your thoughts so we can at least get with
bigger cities of
can you hear me?
Flyover country. Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you're coming in choppy. Your bandwidth is very low. So I want to make sure you at least complete your thoughts.
Absolutely. I've stopped my video in hopes that will reduce the bandwidth. 18 paces from my property line. There is no way that you will be able to fit 3 trains there. And what I ask you to do is to please use the Hawthorne Boulevard option. And Mayor Butts, can you shake your head if you can hear me? Because I saw you.
He's not here. He's gone.
Oh, the Monsignor on the left at the very close in the beautiful gray blazer. That's you. You just looked left.
Me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so I'll use the rest of my
No, I'm not
time.
Mayor Butts. I'm not Mayor. I'm Cedric Hill. But Butts left.
Okay, great, Mr. Well, this is all I want to say. Sorry for the confusion, everyone. But with the option that you're currently choosing, I know that the former mayor of Torrance, if the train was that close to his house, he would be out on the doorstep of the metro telling them to build elsewhere. It is so close, you guys. It's only 12 feet away from the retaining wall where small children play on the other side of the railroad tracks. There's no way you can fit 3 trains here without, and not just that, but Lawndale has an incredibly high water table that the draft EIR does not take into account. You'd need sub pumps or sump pumps along every one of these places for drainage if you guys were to do an at-grade trenched or elevated option. Either way, to support that weight, the water table here is too high. They don't even talk about it. And I know we're the equivalent of flyover country for the larger cities, but please remember Thermopylae. And to the woman who said that the metro will just have a way to work it out, obviously we have all forgotten names like Vanderbilt because the railroad notoriously does not just work it out on behalf of small communities. We are organizing and we will fight.
But thank you. Your time is up. Complete your thought.
Yes, that's it. Remember Thermopylae. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. John?
Hello?
John?
Hello? My turn.
Hi. Oh,
Hello?
Hold on. Someone else is speaking.
hi. It's John again from Lawndale, and just to address the refinery district comment, I was being a little cheeky, but what I meant is the green line ends a couple blocks from the refinery amongst a bunch of warehouses. I'm not calling your whole city the refinery district. Anyway, but that's the city of Lawndale, despite being the most disadvantaged of the 3 South Bay cities along the Green Line, has the absolute most to lose and the least to gain from the Green Line extension, whichever option is chosen. This is why I argue you, as elected officials, need to put more weight behind Lawndale's comments versus the wealthier, more advantaged cities down the line. The city of Torrance, which has the most to gain from this project, seems to want to bear no inconveniences or hassles from the Green Line extension. Despite the devastating consequences of building a Green Line down the row, Torrance seems to care little for its neighbors and is engaged in what I believe is a campaign of misinformation to its own residents. They continue to peddle the row alignment to citizens by saying things like, it could be done by the 2028 Olympics. There is near zero chance it'll be done for the Olympics, as is acknowledged by Metro's own project managers. It's not going to happen. And I keep hearing people here tonight say it. It's not going to happen. I want to address the Torrance official that's there tonight, the transit manager. She keeps saying no other projects, or other projects in the Metro portfolio have also been close to homes. There is no other Metro project in their portfolio that puts a freight train close to homes as this project. There is no other precedent for a project like this. So stop trying to compare it to the K line or to the Expo line. It is not the same. Your argument of get over it and Metro will work with us is just very disingenuous. You as Torrance get the Green Line no matter what. So I don't understand why you can't give a little preference to your neighbors up the line who will be highly affected by this and choose the least disruptive option. You guys might, so sorry, you might have to choose a different road to take to work during construction, but we have to live 50 feet from it during construction. And then we have to live with it for the duration of the next 100 years. In addition, I was dismayed to hear the Metro South Bay Service Council recently made a misinformed decision to back the row option last month. Listening to that meeting, the members of the Service Council, especially its own chair, seem to only be concerned with whether they will have the horrible burden of carrying a suitcase up some stairs or across a parking lot at the Galleria if the Hawthorne Boulevard was chosen. They cited non-existent safety issues of the South Bay Galleria station, but did not once mention the glaring safety issues of the Green Line coming down the row. They made little mention of Lawndale, and despite being a service council, did a disservice to the community they claim to represent. If you need reminding, the safety issues of the row include moving a petroleum carrying freight train with a history of derailments to within 8 to 10 feet of fences in Lawndale. That includes Josh's home that he just talked. Derailment would literally put the tanker cars into the backyards of people's homes. This would send 200 to 300 Metro trains a day through quiet residential neighborhoods. It would force kids to cross Metro tracks to get to school. Even with some mitigation, they have to cross the tracks at 170th Street. It would build on top of multiple high-pressure petroleum pipelines and unstable soils. It would cut access to emergency vehicles and even the ambulance base in North Redondo Beach. All these
Complete your thoughts.
Thanks. All these safety issues can be avoided by building the Green Line down the Hawthorne Boulevard. This is the opinion of the majority of Lawndale and Redondo Beach residents support. I urge you as a body to back this option and actually listen to members of the community affected by this. We here are the community. People from Torrance tonight are either employees of Torrance or former elected officials. Listen to the actual community. I don't see any Torrance residents here.
Thank you, John. The caller with phone number ending in 26480.
Yes.
That's you. You're on.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Rose Rodriguez, and I'm a resident of the Row in Lawndale. I'm against Row C. The DEIR has minimized the risk associated with derailments and gas pipeline accidents. Row C option increases our chances of a deadly accident by 300 times a day, or a whopping 9,000 per month. Present risk is 2 times a day. You do the math. We will be living under a potentially horrible nightmare 20 hours a day. Can you justify placing a high-density population with this increased risk? There is no social justice for Lawndale. Torrance is pushing Row C, the anti-equity choice. They want zero adverse consequences for their residents, but give Lawndale all the negative consequences. Their sense of entitlement knows no bound in their effort to browbeat Lawndale into their doormat. Hawthorne Boulevard is the only future smart, equitable choice. Torrance selected a ghost town, yes, a ghost town, next to an oil refinery, AKA Dead Man's Land. They could have chosen Del Amo Mall. They could have chosen their Old Town City. They could have chosen any place on Hawthorne Boulevard where the mall is, the smaller mall. And this would have generated enormous business opportunities. Doesn't that decision negate their rationale for opposing Hawthorne Boulevard with this fake business concern? Where is their concern about the huge loss of future business at Del Amo Mall? Give the funds to Inglewood for their people mover. And if you're interested in making the metro like Europe, to the speaker who just said that, well, you could put it on Hawthorne Boulevard and make it like Europe. And also, you all have been forewarned about a future catastrophe in Row's future if you choose this option. It's the horrible, horrible option.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Candace?
Sure.
Good evening, COG members and members of the public. My name is Candace Nafisi, and I'm a proud resident of Redondo Beach. I'm calling in to share my support for the Hawthorne elevated option or for the high-frequency bus option. The right-of-way option blatantly violates the Redondo Beach City Ordinance for local sound ordinance and our local building codes that we have here. There are 2 schools within 1,000 feet of the proposed project who will be hearing the sound of the metro every 7 minutes. Our students are entitled to a peaceful education environment. The Green Line proposed project has been proposed for over a number of years. It also disturbs federally protected wildlife like the great horned owls and the red-tailed hawks. Public safety has also been at risk. Since 2001, crime on metro trains and buses has steadily increased. And according to the Transportation Authority, violent crime, rapes, assault, robbery, murders have been up within 24% in the last 2 years. Metro's blatant disregard for our residents' safety, as well as our well-being, is full display. Metro's engineers have communicated with BNSF that the train line will be operational during construction, and their plans indicate to move the massive amounts of dirt will be hauled in and out to accommodate the relocated freight line will put us at risk. The road already has a history of sinkholes exemplified by one open now at Artesia Boulevard. I also want to address the Olympics topic. When a neighbor wrote into Georgia Sheridan, the senior director of Metro, she shared the project's opening date per Measure M is between 2030 and 2033. Accelerating to an open date of 2028 would be, quote, challenging. It would require additional funds as well as an expedited procurement process, condensed review and permit approvals by public and private entities, and an intensive, comprehensive construction period. So Mr. Obaji is right. The transportation director from Torrance is in fact lying to this body and to the public, and it's unacceptable. Thank you, Councilmember Obaji, for your efforts to elevate the residents' concerns. We appreciate it. Despite the snide comment by our former Councilmember Horvath, our city isn't dramatic. The reality is we're a city that cares deeply about our quality of life, and will go to great lengths to protect it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. With that, move forward. It was an item just for update.
Right. Next item on the agenda is something that it's so funny because we've been dealing with things that are going to happen a long time from now. We have to deal with something that's really, really important, and it's happening now. Metro is going to be deciding on the operating plan for how the Crenshaw line is going to come into the South Bay. And I've sent you things about this. There are three options. One option is that the Crenshaw line would go to the aviation station. Maybe Steve is there, help me out. Go to the aviation station, and then we would have to transfer to go on to the Expo line because Crenshaw will connect to the Expo line. The second option is that we get a one-seat ride from our line all the way to the Expo line through the airport. The third option is that we get from South Bay, would have to go, the line would go up to Willowbrook, which is a Blue Line station. And then if we wanted to get to the airport, we would have to go back down and go to the airport in that way, and then go on to Expo. We are supporting option 2. That was the Metro staff recommendation that gives us one line from South Bay all the way to the Expo line. It's extremely important. Metro is doing town halls and virtual. They're taking comments. We need to flood the zone with option 2. Gateway Cities has already put out something that said you have to support option 3, I think is the one that goes up to Willowbrook, and they get the straight line to Expo. So we really have to do this and urge the board to pick option 2 for the operating plan of the Crenshaw line, and that is coming to them. I'm only mentioning it now because if you see anything, there's a survey out, take the survey, say option 2. And I found out that we have discussed this in the past, but we have no official position. Not asking you for one tonight, but it will be on next month's agenda. We have time to take an official position on option 2. And in the meantime, please tell your city or do whatever you can. If you need more information, please ask me. It's a little late. Cedric said we were getting out of here at 8:10. So what I'd like to
Time zone.
Yes.
what I'd like to do is I'd like to suggest, all promise me that you will read a memo. We will try to put a lot of the remainder of these items into a memo and like your board highlights and send them to you next week. And then I can go through a lot and I will do a couple of things. One thing is the next Housing Education Forum, for those of you that have been to them, I think you really like them. They're actually being done by our regional planner, not to emphasize that, but the next one is May 11th. And so it's going to be on gentrification and displacement. And then we have May 18th as a legislative briefing. And then the one thing I really want to say, and I can't remember if Ronson, you had something extremely special you didn't need to say tonight, right?
Just the May 10th.
Oh, May 10th. Oh my gosh. May 10th is super important. We're having a meeting and we want all the cities there, and we're inviting city managers and homeless staff. You are not invited, but you are asked to please get somebody from your city at this meeting. We're going to talk about our homeless money, how we're spending it, how we want to spend it, what ideas we have. The county will be there. They have this impression we never talk to our cities. We really want you there so that we can all talk about what we've done, how we're doing it, that it's being done well. We want the supervisors there, staff. It's not for elected.
I would just
staff.
request that you send a letter out.
Yeah, we will.
Remind them so they
So
have it on.
we've already invited your city managers and your homeless staff, but so please check and see if they're coming. And then that was it, right? And then the last thing that I really need to mention is that the nominating committee, John Cruikshank, our chair, is going to pick the nominating committee and the nominating for next year's officers. If you're for the COG, if you're interested in being an officer, it probably would help him very much if you just let him know. And what happens is the nominating committee will present their slate of officers at the May meeting, and then the vote is at the June. So please, if you're all interested in being an officer, please let John know. And I think the rest of it, Colleen and I will work on making you this brilliant board highlights that you have to promise to read.
Thank you. I tried to get it to under that eight,
was an impossible
but it was
meeting.
impossible
Yeah,
based
yes.
upon all the agenda. And I said, you would have my meeting to be that.
You started out well.
I did. I was ahead.
You were beating people up for 30 seconds.
So good effort. Very good.
I tried my best, but for the good of the order, if any of my colleagues have anything anybody have any announcements?
I just have a brief one because I have limited time to tell you this because I may be gone soon. Just that, you know, I'm going to be the president of the LA division of the league. And it's
you're busy.
August 3rd. And our sheriff who is here tonight is going to be the guest speaker. And also former DA Steve Cooley, who is my constituent, will be the installing officer. It's going to be at the Hotel Maya, a beautiful scenic venue on the waterfront if you've not been there. And so keep that in mind, August 3rd.
What city?
Long Beach. Long Beach.
It's hidden.
Yeah, it is.
It's hidden to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, you need to use your navigation system to get there, but it's well worth it to get there. So you're all invited. I'd love to see you there. It's going to be a great event. You'll probably sell out quickly, so get in it.
Thank you. Any other announcements?
No, it's not announced, but I want to thank you, the chair, Rex, because he came to our tiny homes grand open for the homeless. So Hawthorne, finally, we have our tiny homes for the homeless. So we were very excited. So thank you.
It was good. Very nice.
Sitting in the car, because I appreciate it.
Very nice. Any other, everybody's what? Meetings adjourned.
Okay.
Hey.